Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 67, Sandhagen versus Figueiredo, also known as UFC Des Moines. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com, and with me, as usual, is Keith Shillan, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how you doing today?
I do good, my man. Excited. It's a really exciting card. Our favorite fighter is stepping back in the cage. Obviously, we're talking about.
I don't know if I'd call Mason Jones my favorite fighter. You.
We had the same joke. We had the same joke. We know each other so well.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. So I don't know if it's the reflection from your shirt or you actually are a little ruddier than usual. Sun shining hard up there in Rhode Island this weekend.
Man, my daughter's been playing a lot of softball, so I've been outside and getting some sun, doing yard work when I'm not outside. So I mean, I'm not out at softball trying to do yard work. So yeah, I might be a little red.
Well, you know, this card did lose Trevor Peak. So if anybody really misses him, we can have Keith show everybody his farmer's tan lines, like, in the middle of the preview.
I should be wearing my Penn State blue. That's what I should be wearing.
Yeah. Tell me about it, man. Like, the Penn State's proudest representative in MMA is, of course, in this Saturday's co-main event. That would be Mr. Bo Nickel. We'll get to him when we get to him. If you've been watching this show anytime within the last 3 or 4 years, you know that we make it a point to mention the man at least once per episode. It's usually an off-topic excursion. This time it'll be on topic. So we have a 12-fight card. Generally speaking, no complaints here. I think except under very dire circumstances, MMA cards should never be more than 12 fights. Just it gets to be a drag longer than that. Like, even if 14 fights in a row are all really good, it just gets to be a lot. Having said that, if we were going to lose one fight off this card so that it was 12 fights rather than 13, it would not have been Mario Bautista versus Marlon Vera. It does hurt my heart a little bit that one got booted down the road a little ways to UFC 316 in June. But give me your overall thoughts on this one. How excited are you for this? And outside of the Bo fight, what are you most excited for?
I give this card like a B. It's it's good up and down. I said this on the preview show, and I'm going to say it again. The Bo Nickel fight, him fighting on a non-pay-per-view just doesn't make sense to me. I know they're trying to get into like the Iowa crowd and wrestling and everything, but you've kind of made him a star, whether you love him, hate him. He's all over social media. He needs a press conference. Like, not having him, and he's not this like great on the mic thing. He just has this like, he's got some charisma, but he doesn't, he's not talking big trash or anything like that. But I think they're dropping the ball in this one. But I mean, on the flip side, I mean, he's going to be the talk of the card. I mean, it's not going to be Sandhagen and Figueiredo. So I think, again, I would have liked him to be on a pay-per-view instead. But as far as the card, there's a couple of fights that I think are pretty interesting. Obviously, Jackson Marcos is a really fun scrap.
Boom. Yeah.
Going deeper in the card, I think City's Smotherman can be one to be interesting. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good card.
Yeah, I think it's solid. You pointed out something that I was going to get to. They have Bo Nickel on this card, and the only way it makes any sense is if it's sort of an oblique troll job at Iowa's wrestling culture to put a guy who has tormented them and been part of the ascendancy of Penn State to the dominant force in college wrestling over, Iowa and Oklahoma State, which it's traditionally been. But that means that really he is the second most relevant fighter on the card in terms of geographical relevance. The UFC, when they go on the road, obviously they want to put butts in seats. They want people that will get the local fans booing or cheering or whatever it is. There are were basically no prominent fighters from Iowa in the UFC, a state that was basically almost the cradle of American MMA in the 90s. I would be hard pressed to name a prominent gym in Iowa right now. And so what do they do?
Crazy.
Dana White says, say no more, fam. I got you. He picks up the phone and calls Jeremy Stevens back to the UFC. Whatever you may think of Dana White as a businessman, as a human, opinions can differ, but you can never say that the guy lacks loyalty. If Dana White decides that you're one of his people, you really need to screw up to stop being one of his people. And you never know when it's going to happen. Like, he very famously and obviously likes Raquel Pennington a lot. Raquel Pennington is a good, tough fighter whose fights are usually kind of boring and is like super, super lesbian. They're like, who knows why? Jeremy Stevens is one of them. If you've been around long enough, I mean, we're going back to 2011, 2012, when Stevens got arrested, for getting in a bar fight or a street fight a week out from one of his scheduled UFC bouts. And Dana repeatedly guaranteed the media that, no, Jeremy Stevens is fighting this Saturday. And it looks like he tried to pull certain strings to get the guy sprung from jail, but that didn't happen. I don't know why Jeremy Stevens is one of Dana's guys, but any chance to bring him back, and he's back. He's back for UFC Des Moines. Any other general thoughts on this one before we dive into these prelims? Any comments?
I could care less about Jeremy Stevens bringing it back. I understand they want to get an Iowa guy on it, but they could have brought back Pat Miletich if they had to. I would have cared about the same amount as I did Jeremy Stevens. Like, whatever.
Well, I assume they tried him first and he was in jail. And and Dana's already learned the perils of trying to mess with the Iowa criminal justice system. So yeah, how far down your list of frequently arrested Iowans do you have to go before you get to Jeremy Stevens? Yeah, at least one. So yeah, there you go. First up on the UFC Des Moines prelims is a women's flyweight matchup between Juliana Miller and Ivana Petrovic. Miller, the 28-year-old Californian, is 3-3 overall. She's 1-2 in the UFC. She's on a 2-fight losing streak. She debuted in the UFC all the way back in 2022 with a TKO of Brogan Walker, then ran into trouble in the form of back-to-back losses to Veronica Hardy and Luana Santos. The most recent of those, the Santos fight, was all the way back in summer of 2023. So she's been on the shelf for nearly 2 years. A host of health issues have kept her on the sidelines, but she's back. She is looking to finish out, presumably, her first 4-fight UFC deal with a win against Petrovic. 30-year-old Norwegian is 7-2 overall. She is also 1-2 in the UFC, and she's coming in off a loss as well. She fought most recently back in November, dropping a split decision to Jamie Lynn Horth. So 2 women, both looking to get to 500 in the UFC. Petrovic is favored to get it done. She is minus 230, Miller plus 190. Something I should have said during the intro, and I'll get it out of the way here. There are some wild lines on this card. There are almost no close ones. And if you're familiar with our show, you know that oftentimes I will quiz Keith about the lines because he makes it a point not to look at them in advance. Here, I'm not even going to bother with most of these fights, but with some of them, I'm going to make Keith kind of throw a horseshoe and see if he can guess close to what the line is. This is actually one of the closer ones on the card, and Petrovic is almost a 2.5 to 1 favorite over Miller. There are a number of fights on this card that have a little bit of a feel of old school style versus style fights. Like, there are some very, like, Marina Rodriguez versus Gillian Robertson is as close to like an old school style matchup as you're going to find between, top level fighters in the modern sport. Miller versus Petrovic has a little bit of that as well. The problem for me is Miller did not impress me much at all in her first 3 fights in the UFC, and who knows what she's going to look like coming back. She came to the UFC with a reputation as a very good grappler. I mean, she's a 10th Planet representative. She had some success in grappling. So when she came to the UFC with kind of that stamp of approval on her and kind of a big, like, she looks like a good flyweight, like just a, big frame, muscle on her frame. I thought, okay, she's not very experienced, but we'll see what pans out. And what's panned out is she's not as good as an athlete as you might think she is by looking at her. Like, she seems a little slow, a little awkward, especially on the feet. Her striking is lacking, even as a means to an end, even as just a means to get into clinch range as safely as possible and try to bring the fight to the floor. I don't love Ivana Petrovic as a minus 230 favorite, but I don't think either of these women is a future contender, but I think Petrovic will probably still be in the UFC 2 years from now. I don't think Miller will. Petrovic is fairly well-rounded. She's as big as Miller is. I think she's smart enough to know where her best route to victory lies, which is to kind of win a very women's flyweight-ish kickboxing match, keep Miller off of her, just, use footwork, use a jab, use some judicious low kicks, stay away from the fence. Give me Petrovic to fight a smart fight. It won't dazzle the fans. We might get some woos in the arena early on here, but give me Petrovic to win a ho-hum decision over Juliana Miller.
So the funny thing about Miller is when she was on the the Ultimate Fighter show, she actually looked pretty good, but she's taken huge steps back. Now she obviously has faced better competition, so that'll have something to do with it. But she's big for the weight class. She has good output on the feet. She throws a lot of jabs. She tends to load up on her power shots to follow up. I would give her striking like a D. Like, it looks, I'd say it's pretty ugly. She's willing to eat a shot to land a hard shot of her own. She's very hittable. She likes head movement. You got to be worried about her chin after Luana Santos hurt her many times. She wasn't reacting good to strikes. Again, it was probably a good thing for her being injured to take some time and maybe hopefully improve her skills in that long layoff. She will close the distance and work on the clinch. She has some fairly good pummeling skills. She looks for sweeps inside. But overall, I think she's a weak offensive wrestler. She's not a bad like BJJ practitioner though. She's got some good top game, hard ground and pound. She's got some great back takes. She can ride a little high and lose position, which is concerning. But she has a submission threat. She landed a beautiful submission on the Ultimate Fighter show. She likes to stay busy if she's taken down. She attacks with subs off her back, tosses up submission attacks off her back. If she doesn't get a sub, she lands some really good elbows from the bottom, which I like. She also will work back to her feet, and she can go hard for 15 minutes. Petrovic, she's a southpaw. She's long and lengthy, though for someone who's big, she lacks power. She kind of just wins on points, throws a lot of arm punches. Her straight left is her best punch. She can sneak in some takedowns, like some body lock takedowns. She'll also try like some dumb headlocks, which would be concerning, especially if she gives up her back to Miller trying a headlock.
Everything you've said in the last 45 seconds could be applied to almost every women's flyweight in the UFC.
That's good.
We should throws a good variety of strikes, but lacks power. Has a little bit of offensive wrestling, but tries dumb headlocks. Like, that's the whole division, basically.
We should like play a game where I just describe a female fighter and they have to guess who I'm talking about. Here you go, Ben. You got 3 guesses here. If she gets the fight to the ground, she doesn't have the best control. She needs to improve her own takedown defense, and she needs to improve her get up game. She has 3 subs that I'm not high on either. I think the line is way off. Like, Petrovic should be what'd you say, over 2-1?
She minus 250, I think, something like that.
She shouldn't be that big of a favorite against anybody. She's not good.
You're going to say that about at least 4 other fights on this card.
Yeah.
Prepare, dude.
Oh, they're going to be in Iowa. I hope like the Brands brothers aren't in the audience watching, just shaking their head when people are going for headlocks and stuff. It's going to be sad being in Iowa with half the females in the crowd could win a wrestling match against you. I give Miller the advantage on the ground. I'm going to give Petrovic the advantage on the feet. I don't feel like either one has a big advantage, though. I think the line should be much closer. If I was laying a bet, I'd lay on Miller. But Miller's looked so bad lately. Give me Petrovic by split decision with zero confidence in that pick.
Next up at UFC on ESPN 67, the second straight fight between two fighters under 500 in the UFC, as it is heavyweights Thomas Petersen and Don'Tale Mayes. Petersen, the 30-year-old American, is 9-3 overall. He's 1-2 in the UFC. He's coming in off a loss. He already fought back in February at UFC Fight Night Adesanya versus Imavov, where he got knocked out in the first round by Shamil Gaziev. So he'll look to get back in the win column here against Mayes. 33-year-old Kentuckian is 11-8 with 1 no contest overall. He is 4-6 with 1 no contest. Since joining the UFC as a veteran of the first 3 seasons of Dana White's Contender Series, he fought on seasons 1, 2, and 3. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, comprising his loss to Gaziev also last year in August, and then his first cage appearance of this year back in February at UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Rodriguez, where he got heel hooked by Walter Walker in about a minute and a half. So Mayes looking to come back from that demoralizing outcome. He's not favored to get it done, as Petersen is minus 250, Mayes plus 200. Another thing that stands out to me about UFC Des Moines, there are numerous fighters on this card that I have an issue with their nickname, and I'll mention them as they come up. But I think I said this when we previewed his last fight. If your name is Thomas, and you don't even go by Tom or Tommy, you go by Thomas, and your nickname is locomotive related, you go with Thomas the Tank Engine. Like Thomas the Train, just it's like a knockoff toy that you know.
It's the Building 19 brand.
Yeah. Come on, man.
You know what I love? I just made the most obscure Rhode Island reference, and Ben doesn't want to admit that he didn't understand it. So he's like, yeah. Well, you don't have a Building 19.
No, I have no idea. Hit me.
I was testing you, Ben. You failed.
I failed miserably, but now you got to explain it to me.
It's just like I don't know. It's like like it must be like I bet you can go to Building 19 and get like a Bills Super Bowl shirt. It's just like
there's
things that
street
discontinued. There's like things that discontinued in one big huge warehouse. It's in Pawtucket, so now it closed. When I was a kid, it was like I thought Building 19 was dope because it was super big, and my parents would bring me, and I didn't realize that like only poor people shop there.
Okay.
I was too young, and I remember they used to walk in. There was like this like mannequin thing that was like a character for them that they dressed up. So I thought it was like cool. Like, oh, there's the guy from the commercials, and yeah, I didn't realize it was just like crackheads and my parents. That's it.
Okay. All right.
My parents were crackheads. I don't know. Like, where'd my dad go? Where's my dad in the parking lot talking to somebody? What's going on?
All right. So yeah, there's a street down here in Houston called Harwin Street where, you know, it's a bunch of stores selling like knockoff Coach purses and like just like, you know, fake fake Rolexes made in China and shit like that. It sounds like a similar vibe.
Yeah.
All right. Man, this fight is gonna be lousy. Petersen, I mean, he's not super athletic. He has a pretty modest skill base, but he knows what he's good at, and he does try to work it. Like he's a good offensive wrestler, and so, you know, most of the time he tries to swing his way into range, get his opponent down to the ground, and then do as little as possible for the rest of the round. He's a little bit hampered by the fact that he's a short, stocky guy with kind of short arms. Considering that both these guys are probably going to weigh in within about 5 pounds of each other, like they're both probably going to weigh in right around 260, 263. Mayes is going to look so much bigger than Petersen just because he's so tall and he has such long arms. Like Petersen isn't a great athlete either, but he's going to look like Yair Rodriguez in front of Don'Tale Mayes. Just Mayes has gotten so slow and so plodding at this point. I think Petersen actually wins a pretty easy decision here. I don't know if I like him at, again, minus 250, but Gimme Minnesota wrestling over Kentucky judo all day. Petersen wins at least 2 rounds out of 3, maybe all 3 rounds, by avoiding Maze's 1 or 2 huge haymakers per round, either mashing him into the fence or dragging him to the mat and riding out the booze.
Dude, as you were talking, I was pulling up pictures of building that tea because now it's closed and it's just like I don't know, like homeless shelter. But there was like a commercial and it was just 2 sock puppets talking to each other. It looks like my like a 4-year-old could do. And then I was just thinking to myself, like, I think I'd rather watch those 2 sock puppets fight each other than watch Maze versus Petersen fight each other. Oh my Lord.
Okay, I want like a slap fighting promotion where they have to wear a sock puppet on their hand when they hit each other.
Yeah.
And like the press conference, like the sock puppet's got to do all the talking. I'm down.
Holding a puppet, wearing a sock would probably be too much clothing for Paige Van Zandt. So, Maze, like, dude, we've broke this guy down. Does anybody really want to hear me talk about Maze anymore? Like,
no. Here's if you're a regular watcher of our show and you wonder where the hell the running joke about the Kentucky Judo Federation comes from, it comes from Dontel Maze. That's what you really need to know.
Yeah, honestly, he's got to be in our top 10 of people we've broken filmed on. Like, they just won't let this guy go. Yeah, I mean, he does have that Kentucky Judo Federation, so we'll always remember they always be special in heart. But I mean, it just makes me wonder, like, does judo mean something different in Kentucky? You know, like it's some kind of like flavor of pie or something, because he might be a black belt in that, but Maze judo is, like I said before, is as irrelevant as a lifeguard at the Olympics. Like, I'm just skipping him. I'm not. Listen, people. There's always like one person who don't understand our show and is like, "We got to make it shorter." Like, no, we don't have to make it shorter. We just have to talk about MMA less. Yeah. Like, I still want a 3-hour show. I just want to talk about other stuff. I would totally be down, like, giving 20-second predictions and then just talk life.
I'm down.
I'll go to Petersen. I'm skipping Maze. I refuse to talk about him. How do you describe Petersen? Like, he's just chubby. He's just a chubby dude. He's a former LFA champion. He's southpaw. His striking is pretty bad. He does have good volume. He has some pop in his hands, but he's not very technical. Defensively, he keeps his chin really high in the air. I mean, Gassiev knocked him out bad. He is a good wrestler, you know, for a bigger guy. He's a JUCO national champion. He has decent entries, a lot of like fat guy entries, like snatch singles, running the pipe. He'll do some upper body throws. He's good at, you know, winning takedowns to secure rounds. He only has 1 sub that goes on the ground. This fight is awful, but you said it exactly what I was going to say. I'm always going to take wrestling over judo. I say Petersen takes Maze down, holds him down for 15 minutes, and we all die a small death watching it. It's going to be terrible. Give me Petersen by decision.
The UFC Des Moines undercard powers on with a men's bantamweight matchup between Gaston Bolanos and Quang Lee. Bolanos, the 32-year-old Californian, is 8-4 overall. He's 2-1 since joining the UFC. He kind of escaped from Bellator right ahead of the PFL acquisition, but he's been in the UFC for a couple of years at this point, and he's 2-1. He's coming in off a win. He fought most recently last November at UFC Fight Night Magny versus Prates, where he won a unanimous decision over Cortavius Romeus. So he'll look to keep the good vibes going against Lee. Lee, 33-year-old from Vietnam, by way of Minnesota, is 8-2. Overall, he's 0-2 since joining the UFC as an undefeated standout from LFA. He fought most recently back in November at UFC Fight Night Yan versus Figueiredo, where he got knocked out in the 3rd round by Long Xiao. Odds on this one, fairly close. This is one of the few fights on the card that's close enough that I'll actually ask you. Your favorite is -150, underdog +120. Who are they?
I have no idea. Bolanos is the favorite.
You are correct. Yep. Gaston Bolanos minus 150, Quang Lee plus 120. Men's bantamweight is certainly in the discussion for the UFC's best division. Yeah, I'd say it's no worse than one of the three best. Having said that, this is close to as bad a fight as you can put together in the UFC's bantamweight division. Like, Bolanos seems to be at best just another guy, and Lee has just looked out of his depth. I mean, he gets a pass on his debut. When you step up on short notice and you have to take on Chris Gutierrez, you're getting a full mulligan. And that fight, he did well enough that it actually, I think, caused me to downgrade Gutierrez just a little bit, despite Gutierrez winning. I probably put him in my bears on the recap that night, saying, you know, if that's the best you can do against a guy that stepped up from LFA on like 2 weeks notice, maybe you aren't a future title contender. I don't know. But Long Shao, the jury is still very much out over whether he is UFC material himself, and he finished Lee. Lee is also another one whose nickname bothers me because his first name is Quang. I mean, I may not look like it, but I am from Vietnam, born there. My mom was Vietnamese. His name is pronounced Quang, and his nickname is Bang. They don't rhyme. Like, if you have a nickname that only rhymes if people say your name wrong, I take that back. I take that Bong. Well, if his nickname is Bong, he needs to start getting tested for some things. But maybe.
I've seen the movie Platoon. There's a lot of bombs in Vietnam.
Maybe he's like, one day I'll be in the UFC and Bruce Buffer will say my name horribly wrong. So I'm just going to steer into it now and try to get a nickname that rhymes with how Buffer's going to say my name. So never mind. Quang Lee gets a pass. Quang Lee also, I think, probably gets pieced up by Gaston Bolanos. I'm not super high on Bolanos. He's 32, which is at bantamweight. You'd like a guy to have almost twice this many fights. Like, he just feels like a guy that's come along a little late, and he has decent striking. But despite the fact that, you know, he has 6 knockouts or TKOs in his 8 wins, not a ton of power. Just, he's a guy who throws good volume, is pretty fundamentally sound, and has stopped some people with accumulation of damage, mostly people that were kind of overmatched. But he has defensive lapses himself. I mean, he got touched up by Marcus McGee in a knockout of the year contender a little over a year ago. Just the problem for me is Lee, again, has just looked totally out of his depth in the UFC. He's one of those guys where whatever his opponent has wanted to do to him, they've kind of been able to. So if Bolanos can kind of keep this thing on the feet until he wants to bring it to the ground, if he does at some point, and just touch Lee up, I think he's going to be able to. Give me Bolanos in a pretty dominant decision here. And I could see Quang Lee being on the cut list if it's just another kind of inert performance by him.
Dude, knowing Buffett would probably mess up Lee. So, then I was sitting there thinking, you like war movies?
Oh yeah, I love them.
Me too. It's like one of my favorite.
Like, we haven't done the what is your favorite movie? Get to know the host yet, so I'll save it for then. But
it's a war movie.
If I had a top 10, at least 3 or 4 of them would be war movies.
Yeah, same. Absolutely same. So, real quick, what's the best like Vietnam movie? And when I say like Vietnam, I'm not talking about Forrest Gump, but there's a couple scenes from. I mean, like actual Vietnam movie. Like
most enjoyable as a movie, or like best like
what's the best? However you want to say it.
I mean, Full Metal Jacket's definitely one of my 10 favorite movies ever. But I mean, it was almost just like this human psychological character study that happened to take place in Vietnam. Like, it's not Platoon or Hamburger Hill or something.
Yeah, it has like 2 completely. It's almost like 2 different movies. Like the basic training part, and then like the when they're out war part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And each of them is fantastic.
Yeah. But you're wrong. So the answer is Apocalypse Now.
Oh, Apocalypse Now is incredible. Yeah.
You know what's the sleeper of? I mean, I don't know if it really is technically Vietnam, but it was Born on the 4th of July. That's a good one. It's not. I mean, it's a guy from Vietnam, but We Were Soldiers. That's another really good one.
I have not seen that one.
What? That's fantastic.
Is that the one with Mel Gibson?
Yes, it's excellent.
Okay, I either haven't seen it or I saw it like once long ago enough that I don't remember it well. So I can make it a point to watch that one.
It's not like Braveheart good, but it's probably his second best movie.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, someone. Hold on. Let me back up. That he started. Okay. Don't come at me, Christians, and be like Passion of the Christ. Okay, all right. It's Christian me. I gotta put that on one. But yeah, I don't want to talk about this fight, so I'm trying everything not to talk about this fight. I mean, Bolanos, you know what you get with him. He's a guy he can fight out of both stances. He's an out fighter, fights behind a high guard defense. His striking has been inconsistent. Like he looks really good one fight, and then he gets his ass handed to him on the feet by Marcus McGee, who's kind of a wrestler. So he does cut angles well. He's got fast hands. He's got nice power. He's got 6 TKOs. He loves spinning attacks. He loves teep kicks, calf kicks. His defense is an issue. Probably because of that Muay Thai style, he really lacks head movement. He will wrestle a little, but I wouldn't call him a wrestler by any means. And he's a weaker defensive wrestler. He needs to improve his get-up game. He has shown strong submission defense against guys like Romualdez, who's a submission artist, and Aaron Phillips. Quang, I mean, he's a minus athlete, and being that he's already 33, like I don't expect him to become a better athlete. You don't really improve that at his age. He marches forward. He stays on the outside, and then suddenly he closes the distance and throws combos. He throws a lot of like winging punches, but a lot of times he throws single strikes. He doesn't check leg kicks. I mean, Chris Gutierrez killed him with leg kicks. I mean, insert gazillion guys' names with that, but he can sneak in a takedown. He'll catch a kick or something. And I'd say he's a solid grappler. He actually had a nice back taking against Chris Gutierrez. That was probably his best performance, against a better fighter than his next opponent. He has 3 submission wins too. You're way more confident than I am. I think this is a really close fight. I'm going to say Bolanos because he has I think he should have such an advantage on the feet. I will lean Quang if he goes to the ground, but I expect Quang to struggle to find his range. He'll eat some strikes from distance. Bolanos wins a unanimous decision.
Strawweights are up next at UFC on ESPN 67 as Marina Rodriguez tries to stop the bleeding against Gillian Robertson. Rodriguez, the Brazilian who will be 39 by the time you're watching this. We're recording Monday night. She turns 39 on Tuesday. So happy birthday, Marina Rodriguez. I wish I had better news for you. She is 17-5-2 overall. She is 7-5-2 since joining the UFC out of season 1 of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil. She is on a 2-fight losing streak comprising both of her cage appearances of 2024. She dropped a split decision to Jessica Andrade at UFC 300 last April, then came back at UFC 307 in October and dropped a split decision to Yasmin Lucindo. So she will look to snap that losing streak against the surging Robertson. Robertson, 29-year-old Canadian, 15-8 overall, 12-6 since joining the UFC out of season 26 of The Ultimate Fighter. She is on a 3-fight win streak, ranging back a little over a year. During that time, she has wins over Poliana Viana, Michelle Waterson-Gomez, and in her most recent appearance at UFC Fight Night Magny versus Prates last November, a unanimous decision over Luana Pinheiro. Robertson looking for a 4th straight win that would really insert her into the fringes of the title picture in a division still hungry for new contenders. She is favored to get it done. Keith, Robertson as the favorite is minus. What number does it start with?
1. Well, you said it's going to be, the lines are big, so it should be 1, but it's going to start with a 2.
Robertson minus 310. Rodriguez plus 260. All right. So here's the thing. I'm not saying I agree with the line.
Okay.
Like, but if you had told me that Marina Rodriguez, who 3 years ago was in a title eliminator, she was within a win of getting a shot at Weili Zhang, was going to be a 3-1 underdog against Gillian Robertson, who I still remember as like a 3-2 kid getting pounded out by Barb Honchak on Tough, I would have said you're crazy. But we just talked about, well, I just talked about Dontel Mace. You refuse still, but Gillian Robertson is somebody that we have previewed a lot of her fights in the last 5 years, but at least the scouting report on her has changed a bit. I mentioned that this was a bit of an old school style versus style matchup. I mean, Rodriguez, a decorated Muay Thai practitioner, and kind of a long, lanky one against Robertson, who is not just a submission grappler, but specifically an old school Brazilian jiu-jitsu type whose main problem is that her striking has sucked and she has always struggled to get fights to the ground on her terms. They've both kind of come to meet in the middle a little bit. Robertson's striking has improved a little bit, but it's still obviously the worst part of her game. Rodriguez's takedown defense and submission defense and get-up game have improved. Well, they were improving a little bit, kind of climaxing with, again, her being on a nice win streak a couple of years ago and on the fringes of the title picture. But as she's aged, that seems to have regressed. Rodriguez is one of those ones where at 36 and 37, she still felt very competitive because her game ran on timing, not really just flat out fast twitch athleticism. And when somebody like that ages and slows down, it can seem like a gradual process until all of a sudden they're just toast. Like, it reminds me of Neil Magny a little bit. Here, again, 3 years ago, I would have taken Rodriguez to piece Robertson up with ease and just have Robertson all busted up, like pulling guard by the middle of the second round and just losing a miserable decision. Got to throw in there, this is another nickname problem. Gillian Robertson is a good fighter. She's an improving fighter. I mean, she's probably one of the 15 best strawweights in the world right now, but I can't think of many fighters less savage. That is a terrible nickname for her. And she's had it. She's had that nickname for like 8 or 9 years. And 8 or 9 years ago, it was even worse as a nickname.
I don't get her. I've interviewed her before and she's like super shy and like, don't look at me. But then she has like fiery red hair, like as red as my shirt. And I'm like, it usually doesn't fit with someone who's shy, doesn't want to be looked at.
I mean,
she looks good. It looks good though.
Yeah. And you know what? If you don't want to be looked at, stop being so cute. Anyway, I think
that's what all the girls say to Ben.
Yeah. I think Robertson will be able to get Rodriguez to the ground. Either actually securing takedowns, like her best chance to get Rodriguez to the ground is going to be to back her into the fence, which Rodriguez, for again, such an experienced striker and such a lousy defender of takedowns, considering those things, she should be more motivated not to get walked into the fence, but it's always been kind of easy to walk her into the fence. Give me Robertson. You know what? At this point, I think if Robertson gets Rodriguez to the ground with, say more than 2 or 3 minutes in a round, she might get the finish. Give me Robertson by third round submission. And I think this is going to be a fight where Robertson kind of builds momentum as the fight goes along. I could see her struggling a little bit early on, just dealing with Rodriguez's long jab, her teeps, her leg kicks. But Rodriguez has slowed. Robertson has gotten more confident in her striking. Robertson has gotten you don't get more athletic in most cases, but the move to 115 has made her a little bit stronger in comparison to the women she's fighting. Yeah, give me Robertson to really kind of find her stride, get Rodriguez to the ground, maybe for the first time late in the first round, and it just gets worse from there on out. And give me, like, the route is on by round 3. Give me Robertson to ruin Marina Rodriguez's 39th birthday by tapping out a exhausted, beat up, and discouraged Rodriguez in round 3.
Wow. I mean, I knew there was going to be a gap in age, but geez, I didn't realize there's going to be a decade between these two. That's pretty nuts. Man, Gillian Robertson, to me, like, she's not in my like. I definitely agree what you said about Montel Mays, but she's also someone that's way up there. How Gillian Robertson is under 30 years old is so incredible to me. I feel like she's been in the UFC forever. Her striking has improved, but it's still extremely weak for someone at this level, at this ranking.
This is Gillian Robertson's 19th UFC fight.
That's crazy.
20 if you include the one on Tough.
Like, he's not even 30 years old. That's crazy. Her striking, I mean, it's still very slow. She struggled with the speed of Tabitha Ricci and Ioana Pinheiro. I mean, I obviously know the Pinheiro, went well, but they're just the speed. Like, they had the big advantage on the feet. She lacks head movement, so her strikes, strikers kind of tee off on her when they're landing. She at least has stopped turning her head away from her opponent when she's getting hit, so that's much better. All her striking is really just to close the distance. She's got good timing on entries, not the most explosive, explosive hip kind of person, but she's good at getting the hips and then kind of cutting the corner and getting the angle. She can get desperate to get the fight to the ground. She'll catch a kick. She'll dive in. She'll pull guard if she has to. She loves like a single leg where she's running the pipe, very Glover Teixeira like, which is not the fastest. It's just she gets to it, then take it down. She'll even, like, I've seen her try like flying submissions to get the fight to the ground. She has a very good top game, great back takes. She has a submission threat. She's got 9 subs on her record. One issue I have is she'll look for submissions instead of ground and pound. I think something that should go hand in hand. She has showed the ability to get off the bottom. Well, sometimes that's not true. Like, you're going against like Tabitha Ricci, she struggled to get off the bottom. She was playing beach shade a little bit too much. I don't think that'll be the case against Rodriguez. Rodriguez, what she has going for her, she's really big for the weight class. She's long and lengthy. She's still a pretty good athlete. And yeah, she's on a skid, but she's lost to good fighters. She doesn't have like a really, lost to like, oh man, that person's way lower than Rodriguez used to be. She's a good striker. She's a pressure striker, nice output. She attacks with combinations. I love her 1-2 combination. She's still one of the harder hitters in the division. She's got a good kicking game, nice stepping knees. She has a lot of defensive issues. She doesn't tuck her chin, which is a big one. She will close the distance and work inside. She's really good at framing and landing shots in short distances. She'll throw some mean knees inside. Offensively, she can get a takedown. Again, that's not her game, but her takedown defense has looked good in some fights and bad in others. I'm still going to lean on the side that it's poor. She struggles to get back to her feet. She has no submission game. She does have a good submission defensive game. I mean, perfect example is Mackenzie Dern trying to put submissions on her and Rodriguez finding ways to get out. But she's also taken a lot of damage. I mean, she was knocked out by Amanda Lemos. I think the line is crazy. Like, Robertson negative 300 is nuts. I would have put Robertson like negative 140. I like Robertson game, but maybe I'm not like completely sold on her in that sense, where she should be a 3-1 favorite over someone like Rodriguez. I think Robertson will get takedowns on Rodriguez. But I mean, I think it's gonna look similar to the Dern fight, where she isn't getting subbed. I think she will get 1 or 2 opportunities to get back on her feet. I think as the fight moves on, I think she might even stop some takedowns. And I think when she does, I think she's going to land some big shots from range. I think she might avoid the ground long enough to hurt Robertson a bunch. I'm going to say Rodriguez has 1 more left in her. I'm going to say Rodriguez wins by decision.
All right. You have your first disagreement of the evening, And your first upset pick, and it's a pretty big one, as Keith is going with the plus 250 underdog, Marina Rodriguez, to celebrate her 39th birthday rather than have it ruined like I picked. Middleweights take the cage next at UFC Des Moines as Ryan Loder faces off against Azamat Bekoev. Loder, the 33-year-old American, is 7-1 overall. He's 1-0 in the UFC. He made his debut last August at UFC on ESPN Cannonier versus Bajalio, where he pounded out Robert Valentin on the ground in the second round. He is on a 3-fight win streak overall. He will look to make it 4 against Bekoev. Bekoev, 29-year-old from North Ossetia, we'll talk about that in a sec, by way of Florida, is 19-3 overall. He's 1-0 since joining the UFC as the outgoing LFA middleweight champ. He made his UFC debut in January at UFC 311, knocking out Zach Reese late in the first round. So he will look to build on that momentum, and he is favored to do so. Bekoev is your favorite. Keith, what is the first number of the line? He is minus.
It's going to be big. It's because it should be negative 200, but I'm going to say it's negative 400.
You're close enough for horseshoes. I have him down at minus 380, but there were several books that had him at minus 400 or greater. Yeah, Bekoev minus 380, Loder plus 300. Here's one thing about Bekoev, and real quick, he's from the Republic of North Ossetia. If you're watching right now and you're like, where the hell is that? What the hell is that? The Caucasus that has a bunch of former Soviet republics in there.
that didn't help. The Caucasus are where? I'm just kidding.
So his little country has under 1 million people, and it's bordered by Georgia. It's bordered by Chechnya. It's right next to Ingushetia, where what's his name, Movsar Evloev is from, and kind of like Ingushetia, they're both these little tiny mountain republics that have under 1 million people in them, but they're right between, Georgia, Chechnya, Dagestan, just in that really mountainous region that sends us vicious Russian dudes. Bekoev comes to the UFC as a former LFA middleweight champ, and the thing about LFA, it has been and remains arguably the top feeder organization to the UFC. But the middleweight division, winning the LFA middleweight title is a sure ticket to get to the UFC, but generally does not guarantee success. Like, you get to the UFC and then you're kind of like Andrew Sanchez, Ian Heinisch, Marcus Perez, like most of the former LFA middleweight champs, other than Gregory Rodriguez, that have made it to the UFC, have kind of struggled once they got there.
Anthony Hernandez, didn't he win a LFA middleweight championship?
Now I'm going to check, because now you've got me checking.
And Brandon Allen, both were champions.
Oh, thank you. You're dead right. Of course, like their first meeting was in LFA. Yeah. Yes. So I could see Azamat Bekoev topping out as maybe the second best of that whole batch after Anthony Hernandez in the UFC. Like, I think he has more upside than Gregory Rodriguez, because he also is a big, powerful, athletic, well-rounded dude. But you know what? I think he's more athletic than Gregory Rodriguez, and he's younger. Ryan Loder, I think, is actually a solid cat. Like, if you're looking at his picture right now, I mean, he looks like a comic book character / an MMA fighter from a movie. He looks a little bit like Andre Petroski, and he fights a little bit like a poor man's Andre Petroski. Like, good wrestler with good power in his hands, just kind of a modern day wrestle boxer type. Just, I think Bekoev might be something special. Azamat Bekoev's nickname is Kingpin, and I assume it's Kingpin like, crime lord / Marvel Comics villain, but I prefer to think of it as Kingpin, like it's some like cheesy wrestler nickname. I hope that's what it is. Because if it is, not only is that funny, that's like the most Iowa thing ever too.
It'd be better if it was named after that bowling movie.
Oh, Kingpins?
Yeah, he's a big fan of Woody Harrelson.
Here, I think he's better than Loder everywhere, including Loder's calling cards. And if I had to call it, Loder's calling cards are his offensive wrestling and the power in his hands. And I think Bekoev might actually be better at both of those things too. There are a lot of wide lines on this card, but this is one of the ones where I kind of understand why it is what it is. If Bekoev is smart, and as a guy that has now been training at American Top Team for a little while, I suspect, I don't know whether he's smart or not, but the people who come up with his game plan are very smart. If he's smart, he won't even mess with the wrestling. Like, why even see if your wrestling's better than his? I think he can keep it on the feet. Hurt Loder. He has a more diverse striking arsenal. He has some good kicks. He has like fast hands. I think he kind of blows Loder away here. Give me Bekoev by knockout in the first round. And I think it's probably one that kind of starts on the feet. He tags him a couple times clean. Loder either shoots a desperation takedown or just goes down. But either way, by the time they hit the ground, Loder is mostly toast anyway and gets pounded out down there. So I have Bekoev big in this one.
Yeah, this is a fun fight in the sense, I mean, you got a guy who, won the Ultimate Fight the show, and another guy who's coming in with some buzz. And I mean, I know Bekoev's been in the UFC before, but two guys that show some promise. Loder, he's southpaw. You're much higher on his striker than I am. I don't think he's much of a striker at all. I think he uses his striking to kind of set up his wrestling entries. I think his threat of wrestling does give him some openings to land some shots. And I agree that he has some pop in his hands. I like his body kicks a little bit more. He defensively lacks head movement. He hangs his hands a little low. He loves to wrestle, and they're going to mention him being a former Division I All-American wrestler.
Sure.
But it's I said this last time. Don't get too excited. Like, he took 7th, and it was like over a decade. I think it was 11 or 12 years ago. So again, crazy great accomplishment. Taking 7th is a hell of an accomplishment, but this guy is not in this. When we're going to talk about a real Division I All-American wrestler later on, this guy's not in the same atmosphere of wrestling that Bo Nickel is. No. Now, if he gets to fight to the ground, he's got some nice top game. He will stall for crazy long periods of time. He has no problem. He won't care if he's on top and holding you down and getting booed. He don't care. But when he lets his hand go, I do like his ground and pound. And he showed solid sub defense against Robert Valentin, who's kind of known for a submission game. Bekoev, he's a well-rounded fighter. That's the thing kind of stands out to me. He stalks his opponents. He throws really tight, hard power shots. I like his left hook. It's a really nice shot. He's got serious power in his hands. He's a solid wrestler himself too. I mean, he gets to fight the ground. He's got good top control. He showed. I mean, the Zach Reese ground and pound. I mean, he knocked him out bad with ground and pound. We don't see that in MMA anymore, where guys are banging through someone's like closed guard like the way Bekoev did. And he's a submission artist himself. He's got a bunch of subs. I think the betting line should be closer, just because of if Bekoev can slow down and Loder can take him down and hold him down for a period of time. Like, there's definitely an avenue of victory I see for Loder, so that's why I think the line should be closer. But that said, I'm with you. I like Bekoev big here. I think he clips Loder. Like, I see it the same way you do. I think he clips Loder early, and I think he gets him out early. Give me Bekoev by first round TKO.
Next up at UFC Des Moines, and at least as the card is constituted as of the beginning of fight week, the top prelim is a women's bantamweight matchup between Yana Santos and Miesha Tate. Santos, the 35-year-old Russian by way of Florida, is 15-8 with 1 no contest overall. She is 5-5 since joining the UFC as a former Invicta bantamweight title challenger. She joined the UFC as part of that basically victim of the month club when the UFC was taking top contenders from Invicta every couple of months to sacrifice to Chris Cyborg. But at any rate, she's been in the UFC for a minute now. She's 5-5. She is 5-4 since the Cyborg fight, fighting down in her proper weight class. She is coming into this fight off of a win. She fought last August at UFC on ESPN, Tybura versus Spivak, where she won a unanimous decision over Chelsea Chandler. That snapped a 3-fight win streak for her. Speaking strictly personally, I thought she might have retired ahead of the Chandler fight. I was a bit surprised when it was announced, but she came back. Chandler missed weight, of course, and Yana Santos got back in the win column. So she'll look to make it 2 in a row here against the definition of I thought she was retired, Miesha Tate. 38-year-old Washington State native is 20-9.
Screw Miesha Tate. I interviewed her once, asked her if she ever thought about coming back to MMA. She said no. She's like, oh, no, I'm not retired. And then like 2 days later, the news came out that she's come out retired. Screw her. Anyways,
come on, Miesha.
She could have broke it with me. Anyways, sorry.
38-year-old Washington State native is 20-9 overall. She is 7-6 since joining the UFC. Out of the initial batch of female fighters brought out of Strikeforce. I mean, she was brought in expressly as, Ronda Rousey's last opponent in Strikeforce. She is 7-6 since then, which belies the fact that she won the bantamweight title herself. She is 2-2 since returning from literally a 4.5-year hiatus. She retired after a loss to Raquel Pennington in 2016. She went and took a job as I think, VP of Athlete Relations for One Championship. She, to all appearances, and she had a kid during that time, she, to all appearances, was retired. She lied to Keith's face and came back in 2021 with a little bit of a splash. She pounded out Marion Renault in her return fight, leading some people to say, oh, maybe she's going to come back and be a factor in the title picture again. It has not panned out that way, as she lost her next 2 fights in a row, including a one-off fight down at flyweight against Lauren Murphy. But she is coming in off a win. She fought most recently a little over a year ago. It was a 3rd round, a rear naked choke or face crank submission of Julia Avila at UFC on ESPN, Dariush versus Sarukian. So she's looking for 2 wins in a row here. Keith, I will ask you about these odds. The favorite is -140, the underdog +110. Who are they?
Miesha's the favorite.
You are correct. Miesha Tate, -140. Yana Santos, +110. A side note about nicknames. I have no problem with Yana Santos's nickname being Foxy, but I'm just not going to call Thiago Santos's wife Foxy. That you're going to show up at my door and leg kick me into a wheelchair. Keith, tell me who wins this fight and what it looks like.
No, I don't know that's true, but the way you've been looking lately, his record lately, I don't know, man.
Dude, he could be in a wheelchair himself and he would still kick my ass. Like,
I'm surprised this fight is on the main card.
He can cut off the cage in a wheelchair because I'd be running.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Hey, you're down 50 pounds. You probably be running pretty quick. So,
unless I can climb over the fence, I'm toast.
I'm kind of surprised this fight isn't on the main card just based on, the popularity of Miesha Tate. Like I've said this before about Miesha Tate, when she isn't all right. If we were naming like popular female fighters, I mean, we're doing Family Feud, give me the top 7 answers.
She's on there.
She's making that list. I mean, Ronda, Holly Holm, maybe. I mean, Cyborg, maybe. I mean, maybe throw in a Rose or something like that. She's like my casual friends is naming her pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's why I'm surprised she's not higher on the list.
She's at a kind of intersection, and like she's not the greatest female fighter or the greatest women's bantamweight of all time. She's not. And she might not subjectively be like the quote hottest or most marketable, the one with the most appearances, on hottest women in MMA tumblers or Maxim magazine, but she's higher on both lists than probably any other single fighter.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, she's higher on Ben's search function of that, but well, she was the rival for a long period of time of the most popular female fighter ever. So that right there, I mean, she was the B-side of huge, massive fights. So as far as this fight, things I've liked what I've seen Miesha do recently, I mean, Avila, she looked pretty good. I mean, she quickly just rushed right across the cage in all 3 rounds and was ready to go, staying in Avila's face, which I thought was impressive. Good output on the feet. The problem is her hand speed is gone. I mean, it's really. I mean, she was never really known for her striking, anyways. But it's really bad. She will attack with combos though, which I like, but she doesn't have much power. She doesn't move her head much. Her reactions to strikes aren't good either. And again, she's been out for a while. I don't think it's going to be better as she's gotten older. She's always liked to close the distance and just grind inside. She wants to wrestle. I think her wrestling is overrated though. It's not explosive. She is relentless to get the ground. She's kind of like a Gillian Robertson in that sense, where her wrestling, where she cuts angles well and cuts corners well. But again, she's not like driving through your hips, getting to the second level. She does have a good top game, and she gets to fight down. She's got some solid back take. She has got 8 submission wins in her career, so that's all good. Santos is a bigger bantamweight. She fights behind a high guard defense, nice output on the feet. She can use her size to land shots on the outside. She doesn't really like being pressured. Like Aspen Ladd and Mary Renault, both fighters that are not that skilled on the feet, had a lot of success by just forcing her on her back foot. When she's letting her hands go, she's got very long, straight shots. She looked fat against Chelsea Chandler. But I do think that has more to say about Chandler than it did about Santos. She showed a lot of variety in her striking. She likes some spinning attacks. She's got a big kicking game. In the mid-range, she looks for slicing elbows, something she's been doing a lot lately. She could use her size well in the clinch, grind against the fence. I mean, she out-muscled Holly Holm in the clinch, which is very impressive. This might be Holly Holm's best position as the clinch. She does good work with knees inside to the body and to the legs when she's in close. She isn't the best offensive wrestler, but if she gets the fights to the ground, I like her top game. She's hard to take down herself. So she hit was it? I think it was Aspen Ladd. She hit with a beautiful whizzer to kind of avoid takedowns. If she's taken down, she does struggle to get back up. I mean, Holly Holm kept her on the canvas for long portions of the fight. So I'm really not very high in either anymore. I think both are really way past their prime. I'm picking the upset though. I'm picking Santos. I think she's faster on the feet, more variety on the feet. She's longer. She's slightly younger. I think Santos beats Tate on the feet.
No, okay, no. This is the weird thing. Santos is like 3 years older. It is wild that Miesha Tate is still only 35. Miesha Tate is still only 35. But you're speaking in a direction that my thoughts are going. So
all right, so scratch that. She's not younger, but yeah, but she's like Russian, so all the stuff they take make them younger. So so she's been on Earth longer, but her body's actually technically not younger. But anyways, I expect a lot of clinching. I don't think this fight is going to be very good. Give me Santos by decision.
It's unanimous, man. I'm feeling the upset here as well. And I was as surprised as you. It defies the laws of physics and time that Miesha Tate has taken off like 4.5 years and then almost a year and a half on the shelf and is still only 35 years old. It's just
and she had wild. A long career before
and had a long career before that. Like but despite the fact that Santos is a couple of years older, technically by the calendar, I feel as though I have a better handle on what she's going to look and function like physically in the cage on Saturday. And add to that the fact that, yeah, Tate might be younger, but as you pointed out, like her speed has just slipped so obviously. I remember when she came back in 2021, like the UFC booth correctly couldn't stop appreciating just how much more fit and muscular she looked than when she left off. Well, yeah, that was because she spent 4 years working for one championship. Some of the one championship vitamins must have found their way into her purse. But yeah, she looked more muscular, but she was obviously slower. And it didn't hurt her wrestling too bad because her wrestling's always been kind of grindy and clinch based, which is a little surprising for someone who's kind of calling card was that she was a high school wrestler back in the day when there were very, very few women doing high school wrestling. But because of that, like her wrestling hasn't suffered that much. But yeah, you mentioned it. Her striking has gotten slow. I don't think it's going to matter that much in this fight. This is going to be a fight where 85% of the fight takes place with one or both women touching the fence. And that's Santos's home. Women who have been able to keep Santos in space in the middle of the cage have been able to make her look slow over the last few fights. But she's still pretty solid against the fence. And I think she wins 2 rounds out of 3 here. I agree with you that this probably will not be the most crowd-pleasing fight. Like, this would be a terrible fight to have as the top prelim of a pay-per-view, where Joe Rogan and Dana White are going to get in front of the camera afterwards and yell about how you need to spend $80 on the pay-per-view just after watching a terrible, like, women's bantamweight fight. But yeah, give me Santos by decision here as well. The 6-fight main card of UFC on ESPN 67 begins with a lightweight matchup between the returning Jeremy Stephens and Mason Jones. Stephens, the 38-year-old Des Moines native, is 29-21 with 1 no contest overall. He is 15-18 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He departed the UFC a couple of years ago, but his 1-2 run in the Professional Fighters League was so impressive that the world's premier mixed martial arts organization had no option but to bring him back for a second go-round. This will be his return bout, and ready to meet him in the cage will be Jones. The 30-year-old Welshman is 15-2 with 1 no contest overall. He is 1-2 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC as a former welterweight and lightweight champ in Cage Warriors. He fought most recently, and by the way, this is the return fight for Jones as well. He was released by the UFC after those 4 fights. He went back over and wrecked shop in Cage Warriors once again. I won 4 straight fights and is getting the call back here to face Stephens. He fought most recently at Cage Warriors 175 last July, where he took a unanimous decision over Michael Pagani. Odds on this fight, Jones is your favorite. Keith, what number does the line start with for the favorite?
I expect it to be much bigger because you kind of already tipped your hand. Negative 350.
Mason Jones minus 575. Jeremy Stephens plus 425 on the comeback.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Let's bring this guy back to fight in front of his hometown fans, and let's make him a 6-1 underdog.
Let's make him a 6-1 underdog against another guy who washed out of the UFC. Like,
yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm not hating on Jones at all. Like, I understand why he did it, but when I say he came to the UFC as a former welterweight and lightweight champ in Cage Warriors, here's the thing. In his last 2 fights in Cage Warriors, he fought for the vacant lightweight title and then the vacant welterweight title, didn't defend either of them, and then sprang to the UFC. And he did it as a pretty obviously calculated way to get on the UFC's radar. Just, I'm going to do like Conor McGregor did, like Paddy Pimblett did. If I'm a 2-division Cage Warriors champ, I'll get the call up to the UFC and have a little bit of hype behind me. Like, I understand why he did it, but he's not Conor McGregor or Paddy Pimblett. Like, he's a solid developing lightweight from the UK who happened to be there at the right time to snap up 2 unclaimed belts, and get the call up to the UFC. I mean, his only win in the UFC was over late notice featherweight David Onama. And that win has aged well, but not in a way that especially reflects on Jones. The only reason I'm okay with the line kind of being as wide as it is that Stephens seems like an old 38. The popular wisdom about Stephens has always been off. The UFC has always loved to talk about him as one of the biggest hitters in the lightweight division. all he has to do is touch the guy's chin once. And it was based off of like one huge punch, like early in his UFC run. Like,
yeah. And then he got that Josh Emmett one late, but yeah.
You got the Josh Emmett one late. And I mean, that
like
is
20 fights in.
20 fights in.
Yeah.
Like he gets a TKO just often enough that they can keep talking about it. Having said that, like crushing Josh Emmett in 2018 really was a great win for him, but he bounced back and forth between lightweight and featherweight. And at featherweight especially, he just looked so slow and so outclassed. In fairness to him, he was fighting people like Zabit Magomedsharipov, Yair Rodriguez, Calvin Kattar, like people that were like make most featherweights look slow and basic on the feet, but he looked like a dinosaur dying in a tar pit in some of those fights. And it's not like he turned over a whole new leaf in PFL. Like he lost uncontroversially to Clay Collard, who is just a slightly younger kind of version of himself, and got trashed by Natan Schulte. And I have no reason to believe that he's better than he was when Schulte like wrecked him 2.5 years ago. Like since then, Stephens has tried boxing. He probably has some fights in bar parking lots in Des Moines that aren't reflected on his record yet. I don't think Jones is that good, but it's hard for me to picture the avenues to victory for Stephens at this point. Like Stephens's proverbial puncher's chance or proverbial elbower's chance just gets slimmer and slimmer as he gets older and slower. And whatever other problems Jones might have, he is fairly durable. He's fought guys that hit harder than Stephens and much more often and more accurately, and he's been fine. Like he actually is a pretty durable guy, hard to hurt. I don't see how Stephens finishes Jones, like let alone win or even just wins 2 rounds against him. So in the absence of that, yeah, give me Jones by decision here. And if Stephens looks dilapidated, if he shows up at fight week looking like he needs to cut like 18 pounds to get to 156, I could see Jones finishing him late, just if Stephens is just completely exhausted. Because another thing about Jones is he has a pretty good motor and pretty good cardio. In fact, the more I think about it, that's the direction I'm kind of leaning. I have no faith in Jeremy Stephens to be even as competitive as he was 2.5 years ago, now at age 38 with 50 plus fights behind him. Give me Jones to ground and pound out an exhausted Stephens in round 3.
Yeah, dude. I know like people think I was making a joke about Jeremy Stephens coming back and saying I'd rather see Pat Miletich or something like that. Yeah, I was obviously making some joke, but they say like all jokes have a little bit of truth to it. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about this fight. I mean, yeah, he left. He did boxing. He did bare knuckle boxing. I mean, he got some wins in that and stuff. But I mean, there's a reason why he left the UFC.
Yeah.
And
there's a reason why he left the PFL.
Yeah, in the PFL. Yeah, he wasn't that good years ago. I don't think expect him to be much better now. Now, obviously, my notes are going to be based on what we last seen him in MMA. That was a long time ago. So what he is, it's hard to even expect the good things I say about him to be there. Now, he's a pressure kind of striker that kind of uses feints to draw out attacks. He's always wanted to brawl. As you said, his power is like the biggest fallacy in UFC history. Sure, I mean, like, yeah, he knocked out Josh Emmett, but he's like the guy who, I was gonna make a really bad analogy, but he's a guy who just mistreats his wife, and then every once in a while comes home and like brings her flowers, and she's like, "Oh, he's such a good dude again." It's like, no, that's not who he is. Now, again, obviously, I'm not saying Jeremy Stephens beats his wife, so take it for what it's worth. But I mean, like, he does enough just to trick you to kind of like keep you in love a little bit longer because he's not the hardest 145-pound hitter in the UFC. That's not true. It's not close. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would want to get hit by him, and he's definitely like, a harder hitter. But like, dude, he throws a lot of overhands. He throws a lot of uppercuts. I like his calf kicks. He's got thudding calf kicks. Again, I'm going back years ago, so could be completely gone. Defensively, he stands right in front of his foe. He's flat-footed. He keeps his head on the center line, which is a lot. He's heavy on his lead leg, which leaves him to be kicked. I mean, he was kicked a lot by like Yair Rodriguez. He was hurt to the body by Yair Rodriguez, by Jose Aldo. He can close the distance and work well in the clinch. And that's because he's just a physically strong guy. Despite being from Iowa, though, he is not a wrestler at all. He won't look for takedowns.
No.
His defensive wrestling is bad. He struggles to get off the bottom. He is hard to submit, so I give him that. If he ends up on top, he has some like ruthless aggression, ground and pound. So, and say you want, he has heart. I mean, he has obviously, as he's gotten older, decline and his cardio is faded a little bit, but he's not completely shot. Now, again, I haven't followed his bare knuckle boxing, and I know he picked up some wins there, but I don't know what his cardio looked. But I mean, I saw him like knocking out Eddie Alvarez or getting a stoppage against Eddie Alvarez. So I would still probably lean towards the good side of the cardio. Mason Jones, he's a pressure counter striker, good output. He's a good boxer himself. He keeps everything tight, works behind a nice crisp jab, good at slipping and ripping. He also slips to kind of get into the pocket, and then he unloads big combinations. I say he has some decent power. He has taken a lot of damage though, and for a guy who's young in his career, I mean, Ludwig Klein clipped him and hurt him bad. He's a solid wrestler himself. I mean, he's the better wrestler of these two guys. He's got some fast. I shouldn't say he's better. He's the only wrestler, I should say. He's got some fast entries. Gets on top, mean ground and pound. He did struggle when he was taken down by Ludwig Klein, and he has 3 submission wins in his career. Like I said, I thought Stevens was done years ago. I don't expect him to be like rejuvenated. Yeah, maybe he'll have that one moment in front of his hometown crowd and he gets a win. I'd actually would love to see that happen. But then I want him to retire right then. I don't think that's the case. I think he's completely washed. I doubt he has better years, better fights left in him. Jones isn't a bad fighter. I think he's faster on the feet. I think he's way better on the ground. I say he takes Stevens down. I think he beats him up for 15 minutes. I think Stevens might be too tough for his own good, and he lasts the 15 minutes, and Jones just destroys him. We get like 10-8 rounds. Give me Jones by lopsided decision win.
Man, something will be mentioned on the UFC broadcast that now that Anthony Smith has retired, Miesha Tate and Bobby Green are the last people left on UFC roster that fought in Strikeforce. Like, even more impressive / depressing than that will be if Dean Thomas is the cage side commentator on Saturday. There should not be anyone on UFC roster that Dean Thomas can say, now back when I fought Jeremy Stevens, like that's how long ago Jeremy Stevens joined the UFC. His first fight in the UFC was against Dean fucking Thomas.
Yeah, Dean Thomas probably be cornering Gillian Robertson. Yeah. Oh. How about Jim Miller? Didn't Jim Miller fight in the IFL?
Yep, he sure did. I mean, his brother was like a star in the IFL. Like, yeah, he's seen that higher upside. Yeah, Dan.
I don't know if they say star. I remember I bought tickets at Mohegan Sun. Me and my wife. This is way before my days of Shirt Dog, and I picked nosebleeds. The next minute, I was in the front row sitting next to Dan Henderson. So, and you heard my whole Renzo Gracie story. So,
yeah. Hey, it's worth mentioning that Jeremy Stevens was signed by the GFL. So big coup by the UFC to be able to snatch him up,
Yeah, I'm surprised that's happening with being on the contract with someone like such a reputable organization like that. Like how can he be in both of the top organizations? That's weird.
I mean, maybe the UFC is finally going to bend its stance on co-promotion. Like they wouldn't meet Fedor halfway, but GFL was like, okay, if you want Jeremy Stevens, it's going to have to be,
GFL was like, our first draft pick was Tyron Woodley. Holy moly.
Oh,
I mean, it's still a better pick than Shedeur Sanders. So, but
Next up on the UFC on ESPN 67 main card is a men's bantamweight matchup between Cameron Smotherman and Serhiy. Smotherman, the 27-year-old Houstonian, is 12-4 overall. He is 1-0 since joining the UFC as a veteran of the 7th season of Dana White's Contender Series, where he competed but lost, and as a longtime standout in Fury Fighting Championship. He fought most recently back in October at UFC Fight Night Hernandez versus Pereira, where he took a unanimous decision over Jake Hadley. He'll look to make it 2 in a row to start his UFC run against Sidey. The 28-year-old Canadian is 11-2 overall. He is 1-1 since joining the UFC out of that same 7th season of the Contender Series. He made his debut in a rematch with his Contender Series foe Ramon Taveras. If you remember, they fought on the Contender Series for a wild half of a round. Taveras won by a very, very questionable early stoppage, so they ran it back a few months later in the UFC. Sidey dropped a split decision in another entertaining fight, but he came back last November at UFC Fight Night Moreno versus Albazi and picked up a split decision over Garrett Armfield to get into the win column. Keith, your favorite is -140, underdog +115. Who are they?
I don't know. This is. I'm glad that the line is really close. Sidey is the favorite.
He is. Serhiy is -140. Cameron Smotherman +115. Between two guys in a division this good and two guys that are as skilled as these two are, the probability of this fight ending in some kind of stupid way is surprisingly high. Like, I mean, obviously, Sidey rode into the UFC on the back of a wild 2.5-minute fight where, you know, he got stopped way too early. He was hurt, but he was nowhere near finished. Smotherman is a guy that, I mean, I've been following Smotherman literally since he was a teenager. Like, since before I was doing this in any professional sense, I was seeing him, you know, seeing his amateur fights on Fury Amateur Series. He's a guy that I would have expected to actually be in the UFC before now. He's skilled, well-rounded, physically gifted, good-sized bantamweight, offensively potent, but so wild and so defensively porous. Like, he's 12-4, and 2 of his losses are knockout, like dead knockouts within a minute, the first minute of the fight. Because of that, like, again, these are two skilled guys. These are two guys that on athleticism, skill, upside, being 27 and 28 years old respectively, absolutely belong in the UFC. And given that, the chance of something wild and or stupid happening in this fight is surprisingly high. I think that's part of the reason the line is so close. If both of these guys had a little more poise and fight IQ, I think Smotherman would actually be the favorite, and it would be by more than -140 that Sidey is right now. I think Smotherman is actually a better fighter than Sidey, but I can't discount the possibility that Smotherman, instead of fighting an outfight, bouncing into range and using his superior speed to just kind of touch Sidey up, just gets into a brawl in the pocket like Sidey wants to do and just gets lamped. That's kind of part of Smotherman's pattern. He hasn't shown it to a great extent on the Contender Series or in the UFC, but Smotherman's a good offensive wrestler. Has a nice shot. It's smooth. He chains pretty well. I think he should use it. And, you know, this is something that we harp on pretty much every preview. Even if he doesn't get the takedown or doesn't get it right away, just giving Sidey something to think about will probably make it easier for Smotherman to fight the kind of fight that's to his best advantage on the feet. I'm hoping that Smotherman, again, as you know, he's 27 now. Metro Fight Club has really kind of settled down. You know, Saul Solis died in 2021, 2022. And all of a sudden, Houston's biggest gym, just in terms of like number of pro fighters, was in limbo. Adrian Yanez basically took over the gym when he was younger than Smotherman is now. That's stabilized. Like, Adrian is still on top there, but Eve Edwards is effectively their brain trust now. Like Metro's in a good place. I'm hoping that leads to a smarter, just better prepared, more poised Cameron Smotherman. This is a hard one for me to pick, but I am going to go with the slight upset. You know, take that for what it's worth. If you're watching the show, you probably know how I am with Houston guys, but like if I was close to Smotherman or if I'd seen him in camp recently, I probably would just abstain from making a pick. But again, unless he makes a huge mistake, I do think Smotherman's just a better, more skilled fighter. Give me Smotherman to win a decision here in a fight that is high paced and exciting, but hopefully not too wild, because while either guy can get caught in that kind of fight, it's more likely to hurt Smotherman. So give me Smotherman by decision.
I'm glad that this fight is getting some interest that the UFC's put on the main card. Does it deserve to be? No. I mean, like Miesha Tate's a former champion.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of deserves to be higher. But when it comes to talent-wise, I think this one would good.
If Gillian Robertson beats Marina Rodriguez, she is closer to a title shot than anybody outside of the main event, probably.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. So, well, you know what? The rhythm would be close if he beats Bo.
Because okay, so let's talk about that when we get to it, because that you know, you can make that argument.
The point is, yeah, that I forgot about the Robertson Rodriguez fight. Yeah, that fight should be higher on this too. But from a skill set, I think this is one of the more skilled contests. I kind of like both guys. Sidey, I think he's a really well-rounded fighter. He's a very good kickboxer, high guard defense. He works behind a really hard, like stiff jab, falls with some clean shots down the pipe. He's got big power. He throws a lot of like step-in elbows, which I love. He does a lot of body work. I love his step-in knees. He's got a hard kicking game. You mentioned like he throws a lot of power. He throws everything hard. He will throw kicks without a setup, and he keeps his chin high in the air, which is concerning. He's a solid offensive wrestler. I think his offensive wrestling is a little underrated. He gets to fight to the ground, hard ground and pound. He's not the best defensive wrestler, and that's something that Smotherman could take advantage of. But he looks for subs off his back, which is even more concerning, instead of working back to his feet. Again, that's something that Smotherman could take advantage of. Smotherman, he's more of like a boxer than a kickboxer. He fights behind high guard defense, uses feints really well to set up his attacks. He's a bit plodding, but he will cut off the cage. So he's like a controlled pressure fighter. I like his volume. He's got nice volume. I love the amount of body work he does. He has plus power because he really steps into his shots. Again, I don't think he kicks enough. He should kick more. Yeah, he doesn't check leg kicks. So that's something that like Hadley had some success with against him. He moves his head really well. So he's kind of hard to hit because of that. Kind of bounces his head off the center line. You're higher on his offensive wrestling than I am. I agree that he can sneak in a takedown, but I wouldn't like categorize him as a good offensive wrestler. But like no, like he's proficient, I should say. He's a weaker defensive wrestler, but he's hard to hold down. He'll pop right back to his feet, so I like that a lot. I'm glad that this line is close, and in a lot of this, I like both guys. And I'm really flip-flopped. I think you made a really strong argument for Smotherman, but I'm slightly leaning the other way with Sidey. I do think he has more power, as you said. I think he has more variety in his striking. So, and I think Smotherman might be the better wrestler, but Sidey was one who actually will look for it more. So he can steal some rounds with some timely takedowns. I don't know if he'll be able to hold Smotherman down, but maybe just enough to kind of sway the judges. I'm going to say it's super close. I'm going to go split decision. I'm going to say Sidey by split decision.
We stay in the bantamweight division, the men's bantamweight division, as the UFC has ensured that it has plenty of options should something happen to either of the main event fighters. And next up are Montel Jackson and Daniel Marcos in a pretty high level, pretty high stakes fight. Jackson, 33-year-old Wisconsinite, is 14-2 overall. He's 8-2 since joining the UFC out of season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series. And since losing a decision to Brett Johns almost 5 years ago, he's on a 5-fight win streak. He fought just once last year, and fought like he was double parked, living up to his nickname with an 18-second knockout of Damon Blackshear. He will look to make it 6 in a row here and insert himself further into the contenders discussion at 135. In order to do so, he will need to hang the first L on Marcos. 32-year-old Peruvian is 17-0 with 1 no contest overall. He's 4-0 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC out of season 6 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought 3 times last year. In February, his contest with Auri Qileng ended in a no contest after an inadvertent groin kick in the second round. He came back from that with decision wins over John Castaneda in June and Adrian Yanez in December. So he is on an unbeaten streak of 5 fights in the UFC. Would love to make it 6. Obviously, keep his undefeated record. He is not favored to do so. Jackson is minus 205, Marcos plus 175. I mean, I feel as though anytime the line is greater than 2-1 for us to see something we haven't seen before, i.e. Daniel Marcos lose an MMA fight, that's noteworthy. Tell me, Keith, whether you agree and how you see this fight playing out.
Yeah, I mean, this fight is awesome. 2 guys I like a lot. 2 guys I've been backing for a long time. Marcos is like the quietest undefeated fighter who's fought a lot in the UFC and still not really getting a lot of buzz. And Jackson has some losses, but I mean, the run he's on right now is absolutely spectacular. So I think this is a really fun matchup. The winner of this one, I mean, almost automatically going to be on the Bulls list because I think it's such a quality win for either guy. Jackson, he's a really big dude for the weight class. They always talk about the size of his hands and the glove and how he's got bigger hands than Francis Ngannou and all this stuff. But he's a long and lengthy fighter. He's a southpaw, explosive, fast hands, short, tight boxing, throws beautiful straight shots down the pipe, beautiful 1-2 combinations. He's good at hand fighting. He'll grab hands and then he'll throw shots down the middle, kind of like he uses his hands to move his opponent's defense, but also find his range. If you rush him, he's got a beautiful fade back left hand, massive power. I mean, he's got crushing KOs already in the UFC. Jesse Strader, Ronnie Yaya just destroyed Damon Blackshear, a win that has really aged well.
Yeah.
He'll close the distance and use his size to grind the clinch. Like he can do that too. He likes foot sweeps. He's a solid wrestler. I always go back to like the JB Buys where he out wrestled him. Again, he's much bigger than JB Buys, but still, that's like a quality wrestler that he was getting takedowns on. The issue is that in his losses, he's been out wrestled. Like Ricky Simone and Brett Johns both out wrestled him. Again, 2 really good fighters, especially at that time when they fought him too. And not bad losses for a guy, at that time in the UFC. He's even one concern is like in a fight where he dominated, like JP Buys took him down, he actually mounted him. Man, that was a really long time ago. He showed great submission defense against Ronnie Yaya. I mean, I know the fight was brief, but Yaya is obviously one of the best submission artists there is, and he was able to get out of everything. And he's got a hard ground and pound. Marcos, this is a guy I like a lot, man. He's a pressure striker, fights behind a high guard defense, constantly moving forward and stalking his opponent. I said it earlier, he's got like this controlled pressure style. He's very tactical on the feet, fast hands. He keeps everything short and tight, not a lot of tells, very accurate. I've said before, he's a bit of like a sniper at that. Like he lands easily. He sees his shots, he counters, he lands, and he lands well. I said before, he throws the spots and catches the opponents when he's pressuring them, kind of catching the opponents when they try to escape, which I love. He'll conserve his energy. He'll just touch until there's an open, then he springs at it. A lot of variety in striking. I love his straight left. I love his body work. I love his teep kicks. He's got some good calf kicks. He will go for a takedown once in a while, which I think is really intelligent as he's kind of added skills and become more of a well-rounded fighter. A weaker defensive wrestler, but against John Castaneda, who's not a bad wrestler, he showed improved takedown defense, which I like. I think this fight is amazing. Probably the best fight on the card. I think on paper, I should say, because where you see my prediction, I'm not picking it to be the best fight, but I like both guys a lot. I think both guys might be sneaky contenders. Jackson is faster, more powerful, more well-rounded. While Marcos has the kicking advantage. He's more accurate. He's more technical. I haven't picked against Marcos yet, but I'm going to do it now. I could see Jackson wrestling him, but Marco's really technical, but he eats some shots, and Jackson's not the guy you want to eat shots, and he hits super hard. He's kind of everything the UFC pretends Jeremy Stevens is. I say Jackson gets and people know this is kind of crazy if you make this prediction because I'm a Marcos guy. And I bet you Ben probably might have thought I was going to take Marcos, but I'm going to say Jackson gets another massive KO. I'm going to say he does it early. I'm going to say Jackson does it midway through the first round. Jackson by first round TKO.
Yeah, you definitely were on the Marcos train before me. Like, I'm certainly wrong from time to time about undefeated waffles, undefeated prospects coming to the UFC, and I was more wrong about Daniel Marcos than just about any of the others I can think of over the last 5 years or so, where maybe it's just because early on in my employment with Sherdog, one of the things I did was a lot of work on the South American, specifically Peruvian regional scene. I knew the promotions that he came up through, and based on the people he was beating, I was like, yeah, he's just a guy that hasn't run into the right opponent yet. I mean, gun to my head, when he won on the Contender Series, I would have guessed that he'd be like 2-2 at the end of his first 4 fights in the UFC. Instead, yeah, he's now undefeated in his first 5 fights. And for what it's worth, in that Outreach Shillan fight, he was on his way to winning it. He's a better striker than I thought. It really is him, not just the level of competition he's against. And just when I'm really coming around on Daniel Marcos, this quietly undefeated up and comer, yeah, they book him against a guy that is kind of poison for him. And it's for the exact reason you mentioned. He has good power. He has good accuracy, but he does take a couple of clean shots a fight. And Montel Jackson is maybe in the top 3 guys in the entire division you don't want to take a couple clean punches to the face from. It's like him, Sean O'Malley, like insert another name here, where they're just, yeah, they're also snipers, but with a little bigger caliber rifle. I'm pretty sure I picked Jackson's fight against Damon Blackshear wrong. And in hindsight, that was if I did, that was a terrible call, because yeah, they're built about the same. They're both tall, lanky, but Blackshear's best work is on the floor, and he gets clipped cleanly on the feet from time to time too. And Jackson just zapped him. I'm with you here, man. I'd love to be different just to be different, but I think Jackson hangs the first L on Daniel Marcos, and I think he finds that chin sometime in the first round. Third from the top at UFC Des Moines is a welterweight matchup between Santiago Ponzinibbio and Daniel Rodriguez. Ponzinibbio, the 38-year-old Argentinian, is 30-8 overall. He is 12-7 in the UFC, and he's coming in off a win. He's already fought once this year. It was back in January at UFC Fight Night, Dern versus Ribas, where he knocked out Carlston Harris in the 3rd round. That allowed him to snap a 2-fight losing streak, stretching back almost 2 full years. He will look for his 2nd win in a row here, prove that he has something left to offer the welterweight division, at least as a reliable action fighter and greeter of new talents. But first, he'll have to get past another old talent in the also 38-year-old Rodriguez. The Californian is 18-5 overall. He is 8-4 since joining the UFC out of season 3 of Dana White's Contender Series, where he won but was not immediately signed. He's coming in off a win as well. He fought most recently back in October at UFC Fight Night, Royval versus Tyra, where he took a split decision over Alex Morono. That snapped a 3-fight losing skid for him. So 2 gentlemen with just a little bit of momentum restored as they push on towards their 40th birthdays. This is one of the few close lines on the card, so I will quiz you on it, Keith. The favorite is -125, the underdog +105. Who are they?
I'll say Rodriguez is the favorite.
It's actually Ponzinibbio. He's minus
All right.
125. Rodriguez just barely in the plus money at plus 105. I see parallels here. I mean, obviously, they're both 38 years old. They're within like 2 months of each other's age. But also, I feel as though this is almost just, it's a chin contest, because these are, to use an overused term, these are two warriors. These are two guys that can, will, and do bite down on the mouth guard and have experienced success at just outlasting the other guy. Like Ponzinibbio, even in the midst of a 7 or 8 fight win streak that, you know, saw him cruise into the outskirts of the title picture a few years back, it's hard to string together 7 straight wins at welterweight. But even in the midst of that, it was always a thing where he took a lot of punishment on that win streak. Like, his game has never been about not being touched. The exact skills are not precisely the same, but it's a little bit of an Argentinian, like Robbie Lawler or Dustin Poirier, without quite the same ground game, where he wants to throw down with you in the pocket. I mean, he can and will kick. He has some great kicks, but like, if you look at his highlight reel, most of his highlight reel finishes are finished or at least set up by his punches. And he's just always trusted himself to have the reflexes to just slip or roll with your punches a little better than you can with his, and just to recover and shake it off and be the last guy standing. That's always been Ponzinibbio's game. And when those things started to slip, well, really, most of the slippage happened during his like 2 or 3 year absence where he had serious health issues. If anything, he's been surprisingly competitive since coming back from that, but still, he's just a tick slower. The reflexes aren't quite there. The durability isn't quite there. And because of that, he's under 500 since he's been back. Rodriguez, it's kind of similar. Like, he came much, much later to the UFC. I mean, I think he was already 34 or 35 when he got to the UFC. Like, he got to the UFC, I think, after COVID. But despite his age, was surprisingly successful. And again, on his way up, it was by fighting other people that are generally ready, willing, and able to throw down in the pocket. People like Mike Perry, Nicholas Dalby, Li Jingliang, and just trusting his chin, his instincts, his recoverability, and his power to bring him out on the winning side of that. So to me, I mean, both these guys are going to want kind of the same fight. The thing that I've been going back and forth over, and I think the reason the line is as close as it is, it's hard to call. Like, Ponzinibbio just seems brittle now. If I'd had to guess, I would have guessed that he'd already be on a streak of like 3 bad knockout losses in his last four fights or something, and maybe we'd be like politely begging him to retire after Saturday. Instead, he's still kind of out there. I mean, these guys have both beat my teacher, Alex, you know, so if we can get a double knockout, that'd be fantastic. But I don't feel that way, because like Alex is never bitter against the people he fights. But
so does that make them your teacher?
Yeah. Alex is my jiu-jitsu teacher. And there was no jiu-jitsu in either of those fights. I guess Rodriguez is a slight underdog now, and so I guess I'm calling for a slight upset here. But, and for what it's worth, as dilapidated as these guys both are, I think this one makes it to the final horn. But give me Rodriguez to win 2 rounds out of 3, and maybe even a splitter. I could see this being a fight where both guys hit the other cleanly, stagger, somehow recover. It won't get the biggest pop on the way out to the cage, but I could see this one getting some of the loudest crowd response during the fight. The UFC booth will do its best to assure you that this is, you know, 2 true warriors. This is one of the most entertaining fights of the year. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it should definitely be one of the most entertaining fights of the night. And give me Rodriguez to win in a very narrow decision. And it's probably like the last either of these guys will look this good.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see these guys, you know, fighting each other in their prime, because I agree. Like they're two of like my favorite fighters. Obviously Ponzinibbio has been around a lot longer than Rodriguez in the UFC, you know. But like Rodriguez, when he first came in, that like run he had was really exciting. So, but both seem to kind of be at the end of their careers. Ponzinibbio, I mean, he's a volume striker. He's a kickboxer. He wants to pressure, get into the range. He wants to be pressing the action. He showed against Carlton Harris he still has pretty good hand speed. He can be explosive. He uses feints well to keep his opponents guessing. He measures his shots really well by winning the foot battle and lining up his right hand. He'll attack with combinations. His left hook kind of being his best strike. He has some power. He's got hard calf kicks. But you mentioned you have to worry about his chin. I mean, the guy's taking ungodly amount of damage. He's shown how tough he is by eating big shots, but still getting cracked by Michel Bekoev, getting cracked. Even like Carlton Harris in a win, he was getting cracked by him. But to his credit, he kept coming forward. But he doesn't move his head, and that's why he eats a lot of shots. And I think there is signs of his chin starting to crack, and I'm worried that it can just explode overnight. So when the end comes from Ponzinibbio, it's going to be really bad. It's just will the end be, this weekend? Yeah. He will wrestle, but I wouldn't categorize him. I'd say his offensive wrestling is inconsistent. Like he's gotten some takedowns against Jeff Neal and Michel Bekoev, but then he struggled to get takedowns against Muslim Salikov when he went for takedowns. He needs to improve his time control if he does get the fight to the ground. Cardio was like his big ally, but he's slowed against Moreno. He's slowed against Holland. His output dropped a lot against Salikov. To his credit, his cardio was a bit of a strength against Carlton Harris. Like it looked better. But is that like a comeback or is that the outlier at this point? I don't really know. Probably leaning more towards the outlier. Rodriguez, he's a big welterweight. He's a southpaw, nice output on the feet, quick hands, works behind a crisp jab. And we've talked about it before. I think everything comes off his jab. He doesn't care about winning a slow pace decision boxing from distance, though he can get drawn into a brawl. I always go back to like the Li Jingliang fight where he just beat him up with a jab. That's how he won the fight. And that was a really close fight. But that's basically most of his offense. He has a very solid left when he lets it go. He loves his check left hook. He beat up Tim Means. He beat up Preston Parsons with it. He has some power, but I wouldn't categorize him as a power puncher by any means. He's looked different lately. Like he landed some power shots against Gaston, but then didn't step on the gas to finish him. Kind of too many arm punches instead of stepping in and cracking. He's for a guy who's such a good boxer. He's not defensively sound. He's very hittable. Been hit a lot, especially lately. He has abandoned kicks. He didn't really throw any kicks against Calvin Gastelum. He's a better grappler than he gets credited with. He doesn't look to wrestle often, but he can occasionally sneak in a takedown every once in a while. Some of that has to just do with his size. He's a weak defensive wrestler, or I should say weak defense. He's again similar. His defensive wrestling been inconsistent. He does have 3 subs on his record, but I'd be really surprised if he subbed Ponzinibbio. Well, he's gassed out in the past, and I've also said this before. I was going back to the Neil Magny fight. Like he looked like he mentally broke against Neil Magny, which was not a good sign. And like he also has fought down to his competition. Like he had a really close fight against Alex Moreno. And I don't mean to like insult your jiu-jitsu coach, but there was a time where he would have just absolutely trashed Alex Moreno, and that was a really close fight. So I'm not high on either fighter anymore. Ponzinibbio definitely has, I think, a dog in him. I'm not really saying definitely. I mean, I said I think he has dog. I mean, he's the ultimate dog. What am I talking about? That wasn't a mystery. That was solved a long time ago.
No. Like I kind of made fun earlier of Gillian Robertson being nicknamed the Savage. Santiago Ponzinibbio might be the most savage guy in the UFC right now. Like just like on the entire body of work.
Sure. Yeah. He's up there. Yeah. So he's got this dog in him, but Rodriguez is the more skilled and technical fighter. That said, I feel like Rodriguez has really declined, and he might be a little broken. I say Pons brings it to him. before I really broke into this fight, I thought I was going to take Rodriguez, but I'm going the other way. I think Pons beats Rodriguez with volume and aggression. I say he hurts him late. I'm going to say Pons has one more great memory in the UFC. I say he gets back-to-back third-round finishes. I say Pons by third-round TKO.
All right. Can't wait for that one. That brings us to the co-main event of UFC Des Moines, a middleweight matchup between Rainier de Ridder and Bo Nickel. De Ridder, the 34-year-old...
Sorry to interrupt you, dude. You forgot about Corey Sandhagen versus Dave Figueiredo. We haven't done that fight yet. Because we usually do the main event last, right?
Yeah. Well, I was considering that more like a post-lim, you know?
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to ask Mike Fridley, do we even have to cover the Sandhagen Figueiredo thing?
All right, yeah. Fair enough.
De Ridder, the 34-year-old Dutchman, is 19-2 overall. He is 2-0 since joining the UFC as a former two-division champ in one championship. He made his UFC debut last November at UFC Fight Night Magny versus Prates and tapped out Gerald Meerschaert in the third round. He came back in January at UFC 311 and tapped out Kevin Holland in the first round. He will look for his third straight win in the UFC. I'm sure he would prefer it were by submission against Nickel. Nickel, 29-year-old, I believe originally Texan, now by way of Pennsylvania, is 7-0 overall. He is 4-0 since joining the UFC as a two-time competitor on Dana White's Contender Series. He won twice on season 6, just a couple weeks apart before getting the call up. He fought twice last year, choking out Cody Brundage at UFC 300 in April, then coming back in November at UFC 309 and picking up a unanimous decision over Paul Craig. Keith, Bo Nickel is your favorite. What digit does the line start at?
Well, I'd probably, I mean, Bo's always been a massive favorite, so it's going to be something stupid, like more than it should be, but negative 550.
It's not that bad. Nickel is minus 310, de Ridder plus 250.
Okay.
Now, having said that, even with the Paul Craig fight out of the way, you know, Nickel, of course, fought Paul Craig, whose specialty is losing a fight until he traps a younger, more skilled fighter in a sneaky submission. Even with the Paul Craig fight behind him, if I wanted to test Bo Nickel and see if he was for real, Rainier de Ridder is kind of the kind of guy I would throw in front of him, because here you go. Nickel is a rapidly developing prospect. He's still under 30, but his standout skill, of course, is that he is one of the best wrestlers ever to cross over to MMA in his actual athletic prime early enough to develop. Like, you know, we've had multiple Olympic champions wrestle, you know, like look no further than Henry Cejudo, and then there were several of them back in the 90s, but most of the ones in the 90s crossed over way too late and never really ever cross-trained. They were just wrestlers who wrestled until they got their ass kicked. Like, Nickel is it as far as like actual super elite freestyle wrestlers / folk style wrestlers who came to MMA in their early to mid 20s and actually started cross-training. He's it. So putting him against a guy in de Ridder where your best route to victory is not to do the thing that you do best, is kind of an interesting test. In fairness to de Ridder, he's done better than I thought he was going to in the UFC. I openly questioned ahead of his UFC debut whether he was even going to make weight. I mean, I mentioned that he was a two-division champ in one championship. Yeah, he was a two-division champ at 205 and 225 pounds. He's a 6'4" dude with a huge wingspan. I mean, if you stenciled his silhouette on a wall, he's basically the size of that, like John Jones was when he came to the UFC, like a 6'4" skinny guy with real long arms and legs. So for him to make 185 and seemingly just fine. I mean, you know, his first fight in the UFC went to the third round and he got a third round finish against the guy that normally finishes the other guy in the third round. But here's the thing. De Ridder he's a very good opportunistic grappler. He has a good top and bottom game. Not a traditional wrestler, but at least against the competition he had in one championship and against Kevin Holland, one of the lowest fight IQ fighters in modern UFC history, he's figured ways to get people to the ground. He's not as good a striker as I feel like he should be, just given his frame and the threat of his grappling. Like, just kind of slow, defensively porous. I mean, Anatoly Malakin beat the shit out of him twice. And part of it is just that Malakin was much bigger and heavier, even if he wasn't taller. And part of it was just that it was so easy for Malakin to just kind of walk him down and clock him cleanly. I don't think the line should be wider, because again, the gap in experience between the two guys is enormous. And if Nickel has 25 career fights and turns into an all-time great, him shooting straight into a guillotine or dumping De Ridder with a double leg and falling into a triangle choke 15 seconds later will be like, oh yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that would have happened to Bo Nickel in his 8th fight. I don't think it's going to happen, because he himself is so intelligent about the game, so well coached, like a guy that sought out high level coaching and began diversifying his skill set very early on. I will leave it to you to give the rundown, like the breakdown of his skills, just because you're better at that than I am. But this is another fight where De Ridder's best routes to victory would involve Nickel making a terrible mistake or gassing out horribly in a way we haven't really seen him do. I'm not picking either of those things to happen. If Nickel wants to use this fight to showcase the ongoing developments in the striking, I mean, we've already seen him head kicking people. It'd be interesting to see him try that on one of the few people that's going to be much taller and lankier than him in this division. If we see him do that, I think he can do that. De Ridder's deficiencies defensively on the feet would make it a prime time to try that. Or if Nickel wants to just continue along that Chris Weidman, Ben Askren path of, yeah, I'm a wrestler, but I took to this grappling thing like a fish to water and take De Ridder down and dominate him in his world, I think Nickel can do that as well. And that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Give me Nickel to just abuse De Ridder on the feet for the first round, maybe feint a couple takedowns, or even just take him down and, let him up or spring back up when De Ridder starts, crawling his guard up. But give me Nickel to get a big takedown in the second round, pummel De Ridder some, and slap on an arm triangle and finish this thing on the ground. I'll take Nickel by second round submission. And while Nickel is a big favorite in the straight money line, I bet Nickel by submission is either even money or even plus money.
Yeah, I mean, De Ridder's game is jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I again, this is not a betting show, but I would assume that Bo by submission would definitely give you plus money. But I'm gonna start with Bo. So I just want to remind people, because this is this crazy narrative about Bo fighting tomato cans and all that. Bo has been a professional mixed martial artist less than 3 years.
Nickel by sub is plus 600. I'm not a betting man.
Yeah, there you go.
But and sports betting is so restricted in Texas that I have to get on a VPN or go see some shady dude in an alley if I want to. Yeah, like I legit can't get onto regular sports.
I just said I liked everything. I liked everything in Texas, and then 15 minutes later, I found something I don't like about Texas. Like let adults be adults. Like, you're an adult, do whatever you want, dude. If you want to spend your mortgage, go for it. It's on you. Be an adult.
It is easier for me to find psychedelic mushrooms in Texas than a dude that will let me slap down $100 on Bo Nickel by submission. Yeah, I'm going to try both this Saturday.
Yeah. You might be on those mushrooms if you bet on Bo at that price. But yeah, what I was saying was, this guy's been in MMA less than 3 years. He has less than 3 years experience, and he's fighting a former 2-weight world champion in a major organization. Mm-hmm. the narrative of him fighting tomato cans is one of the silliest narratives of all time. It is so, he has taken such a, yes, I understand there might be a couple of guys out there that taking a faster track. I get it. But he's in that category. He's not, he's the complete opposite of what people say. Oh, he fights nothing but tomato cans. He's so cocky. It's like his debut, his mixed martial arts debut, professional debut, was more recent than Conor McGregor's last fight.
Yep.
Like his entire career has been a year after Conor's last fight.
Dude, okay, his UFC debut was against Jamie Pickett, and all fairness, like Jamie Pickett is one of the lowest level middleweights to make it to the UFC that long. Like, you know, Jamie Pickett. Take other super prospects. Like, go look at who like John Jones was fighting in his fourth professional fight. Like, I think it may literally have been. I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure you know who it was.
Well, John Jones is actually one of the excuses though, because he like one of the like he's not a good example because he might have had 4 fights, but he had them like back to back to back to back. He had like 6 fights in like 6 months. Well, then he was in the UFC, so like he's the exception. But yeah, go look up who. I don't know. Go look up who. I'm just making up guys, but look at who Robert Whittaker fought in his 6th fight. Mm-hmm. Or think about like Robert Whittaker like having losses in his career before he came to the UFC, didn't have that good of a record.
Yeah.
And yes, people are going to be in the comments. Well, look at this guy. Look at that. Yes, I'm sure there will be people that has even more impressive guys that they fought in their 6 or 7 fights. But and again, we're not talking about the like pre-tough days where you know your first fight could be Ken Shamrock, sure.
Yeah.
But the narrative of him fighting Tomato is silly. He should be fighting on a regional scene still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if he wasn't take away Hodge Trophy and or you know super popular, he'd be fighting regional scenes, calling for contender fights now, not fighting on the co-main event against a 2-weight world champion, and he wins, he's going to be ranked. Like it's yeah.
He's exactly the kind of guy that if Bellator had snapped him up instead of the UFC, like he'd still be buried on like 14 fight prelims.
Yes, absolutely.
Fighting like a 3-6 dude.
That's right. Absolutely.
Like Joey Davis or Tyrell Fortune or, you know.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So I must say something too. The way he fought Paul Craig, people hated it. It was so smart. It was exactly the way he should have fought him. As far as his skill set, he's a long and lengthy fighter. He's a southpaw. He's very athletic. He is raw in the feet, not as technical, kind of just uses his athleticism, uses a lot of feints well to set up his shots. His threat to takedowns set up the opportunities for him to step in because with the way he steps, it looks like he's going to do like a snatch single, and then he can, you know, throw something over the top. The Val Wilburn fight is a perfect example of that, where it looked like Wilburn drops his hands because he thought he was going to take him down. He has a few KOs on his record, so he's shown that he has power, and he is the best wrestler in all of MMA. And I've said this last time, I'm going to say it again. It's an absolutely silly argument to argue otherwise. It's stupid. It would be like, I don't know, insert high level NBA player. I don't know. Jason Tatum. I don't know. I'm not a big basketball guy, but Jason Tatum came and fought in the UFC, and someone said Jason Tatum is the best basketball player in the UFC. And someone saying, "Well, I don't know, dude. I saw some guy showed a highlight video, and I saw Jamal Hill hitting a sky hook. Like, cool. Like, not on Jason Tatum's level. Nobody in the UFC is at Bo Nickal's level of wrestling in a straight wrestling. I'm not talking about MMA wrestling. I'm not talking about with a cage. I'm not talking about because people somehow will always bring in like striking analysts. In a straight freestyle wrestling match, you stick him on a wrestling match. Shemaev would not last 30 seconds in a straight wrestling match against Bo Nickal. It is fucking silly to even ask the question. Is so fucking dumb. Bo Nickal wrestles Aaron Brooks every day. He wrestles Carter Starachi. He wrestles, like, shut up. Shemaev is not even in the galaxy as this guy's wrestling. in a straight wrestling match. I'm not talking about MMA. Could Chimaev take him out of MMA? Maybe, because it's completely different. You're not in the normal wrestling stance. First of all, you're not in a wrestling stance at all. First of all, there's no hand fighting, grip control. There's no collar ties. There's none of that in MMA. So there is definitely an MMA style of wrestling. So could Chimaev? I don't think he would, but it's a possibility. It's probably a good possibility. In a straight wrestling match, it's fucking silly. You're talking about a 4-time NCAA champion, 4-time NCAA finalist, 3-time NCAA champion, Hodge Trophy winner, U23 world champion, a guy that was one match away from the Olympics. And the only reason he didn't make the Olympics is because he faced a freaking guy who won the gold medal in the Olympics. As far as his wrestling skills, I mean, he's got good entries. He's not Jordan Borros explosive. He's more of a will shoot, miss a takedown, kind of get a scramble going, using his long arms. Very like more Ben Askren style of wrestling where he wasn't explosive. He loves knee picks. He hit Cody Brennan with a knee pick. Great smothering top game. He's very creative. He's a guy that he's like the master of like incredible results from bad technique. Upper body takedowns, throws. Nobody takes him down. I mean, like I always go back to like Miles Martin when he took him down, and then next minute, like Miles Martin took him down, and then the seconds later he was getting paid. Miles Martin was a defending NCAA, he was not defending, it was 2 years earlier, but he was a D1 NCAA champion. If you shoot on him, you got to get front headlocked. He's great at that. He transitions super well on the ground. He's already showed he's a submission threat just because like obviously grappling comes kind of natural to him. And so Dorita is a one-dimensional guy, but he's really good at that dimension. And his best skill set is not that he's just one-dimensional, but that he puts himself in the best position to get a win, which I've said before. Some guys go, oh, I'm an MMA fight, I have to strike, and then I look for my wrestling or that. The guys who just go like, my best avenue of victory is get the fight to the ground, I'm going to get to it right away, seem to win more than the guy who might even be a more decorated wrestler. He's a poor athlete, but he's a massive middleweight. The guy's as big as a freaking heavyweight. As far as his striking goes, his hand speed is bad. He's a bad striker. He throws a very simple 1-2 combination. He lacks power for a guy who's super, super big. He does have a good kicking game. He likes teep kicks, obviously because of his size. He throws a lot of kicks because he's worried about being taken. I mean, he's not worried about being taken out, I should say. So, like, he wants to get the fight to the ground anyways. He doesn't care if you take him down. I'd say he's an okay wrestler. He's not your traditional wrestler. But he's relentless to get to the fight to the ground. He'll just keep shooting. To his credit, his wrestling looked pretty sharp against Kevin Holland, but Kevin Holland looks great one fight, looks terrible the next. He's a great grappler, a smothering top game. He stays glued to his opponent. He controls really well, does like the little stuff, grabbing the pose, hooking the ankles, slick back takes. He's constantly looking for the sub. He's got 14 subs on his record. Against a very underrated grappling Jerry Mershot, he subbed him, which is obviously impressive. But if he's put on his back, he struggles to get back to his feet. So as far as the prediction goes, people are going to hate my prediction. But if I was Bo's coach, I'd say screw the fans, screw the criticism. I would have him fight Dorita exactly the way he fought Paul Craig. Stick and move. Use your speed from the outside. Bo could easily take Dorita down, but why give Dorita a chance to catch a guillotine as he takes him down or sweep him from on top or something like that? Stick, move, punch, jab, throw an overhand right. If you want to throw a high kick near the very end of the round, 20 seconds left, or if you miss it, he jumps on you, you could probably defend a submission, sure. And honestly, I think Bo might do that. I think Bo beats up Dorita on the feet from distance. I think it cruises decision. I think it's going to look just like the Paul Craig fight. It could be Bo by unanimous decision.
With that, we come to the main event of UFC on ESPN 67, a bantamweight contenders match between Corey Sandhagen and Davison Figueiredo. Sandhagen, the 33-year-old Colorado native, is 17-5 overall. He is 10-4 in the UFC. He is 8-4 at bantamweight. He debuted in the UFC at 145 pounds, which is where most of his regional career took place. And then he had a 140-pound catchweight bout against Rob Font a year or so ago. But at any rate, 10-4 in the UFC. He is coming in off a loss. He fought most recently last August in the headliner of UFC on ABC 7, where he dropped a unanimous decision to Umar Nurmagomedov. Prior to that, he had been on a 3-fight win streak. He'll look to start up a new one here at the expense of former flyweight champ Figueiredo. The 37-year-old Brazilian is 24-4-1 overall. He's 13-4-1 in the UFC. He is, of course, a multiple-time flyweight champ who moved up to bantamweight after his unprecedented 4-fight series against Brandon Moreno. Since moving up to bantamweight, he is 3-1. He won his first 3 fights in his new division over Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt, and Marlon Vera before running into Petersen in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 248 last November. There, he dropped a unanimous decision over 5 rounds to former bantamweight champ Yana. Figueiredo will look to get back in the win column here and give himself perhaps one more shot at 2-division glory at age 37. He is not favored to do so. Keith, Sandhagen is your favorite. What is the first digit of his money line?
It's got to be something big because you keep referring to that. What I would set it at, negative 210.
Corey Sandhagen is minus 475. Davison Figueiredo plus 350.
Oh, against Davison. I mean, I understand it'd be the favorite, but it's still Davison Figueiredo. You're talking about one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time who still looks pretty damn good.
Yeah. Well, Davison Figueiredo is, I mean, I'm not going to sit down with pen and paper and write the list right now. I mean, I will on the recap if he wins, but I think he's probably in the top 30, 40 fighters of all time, pound for pound.
Yeah, probably.
Like Sandhagen isn't even in the top 15 bantamweights of all time, probably. Like he's one of the best, or he's one of the best bantamweights of his era, and he is an almost 5-1 favorite over Figueiredo. Like,
damn.
Part of it comes down to size. Like the cool thing about Figueiredo's bantamweight debut was, he took on Rob Font, so we got to see right away what Figueiredo was going to look like at 135 against a pretty tall, pretty rangy bantamweight who wanted to fight an outfight against him. Like that's what Figueiredo was going to have to deal with if he was going to be a title contender in this division. Because yeah, your bantamweight champ is a short, stocky little dude with short arms, but pretty much the whole route there is going to be against people way taller and longer than Figueiredo. But this is going to be a whole different level than that. Like we know, like Sandhagen is substantially taller and with longer reach than Font. He's probably just flat out better than Font at any point in their careers, but especially now. I mean, Sandhagen's still just 33. He might still be on the tail end of his prime. They're going to look like they belong in 2 different weight classes. I mean, Sandhagen came to the UFC as a featherweight, and he was one of the taller and reachier featherweights in the UFC at the time. At bantamweight, it's ridiculous. Figueiredo, very obviously a former flyweight. So they're not going to look like they even belong in the same weight class. It all comes, I mean, Sandhagen has always lived and died by his ability to dictate distance. He's one of the tallest guys in the division. He has an incredible jab that once he gets the jab working, everything else works off that. It's always, I mean, it's not just come down to his ability to keep things upright because hell, I mean, he has a surprisingly adept reactionary takedown game of his own, but it's come down to his ability to keep things on the feet when he wants them there, but even more importantly and more relevantly here, his ability to keep the stand up at the distance where he prefers it. Like he has effective weapons inside, but inside other people can catch him too. And that's where he's taken his worst damage is when shorter, faster fighters have kind of gotten inside his jab and kicking range. For me, it comes down to whether Figueiredo can do that on any kind of regular basis. I don't think he's going to. I'm not sure. I'm minus 500 confident that he's not going to be able to, because Sandhagen has kind of mystifyingly come out and laid an egg from time to time. But yeah, especially across 5 rounds, I lean pretty heavily towards Sandhagen here. I could see Figueiredo, if I had to pick, I'm going to guess this goes down as like a 49-46 thing where there's one round where Figueiredo just, steps inside a body kick or a jab, catches Sandhagen in the face. Sandhagen is rocked and Figueiredo is like chasing him around and trying to pile on the damage or finish the fight for the rest of that round. He wins the round uncontroversially, but Sandhagen's fine to start the next round and he just gets back on his bike. That would be my guess. Give me Sandhagen by decision here. And while I'm picking Sandhagen to win, even if Figueiredo wins, my real pick is whoever loses this fight will never be this close to the title picture again. Even though Sandhagen's only 33 and theoretically could do this for another 4 years or so, this is definitely last call for Figueiredo. Like if Sandhagen beats Figueiredo uncontroversially, he's going to have some hard decisions to make because he'll be a guy kind of without a home divisionally. But if Figueiredo beats Sandhagen, the road back to here for Sandhagen, headlining a fight night on the road in a fight, that's maybe 2 fights away from a title shot, I don't think he makes it back either. So it's a real do or die for either of these guys. I think Sandhagen is the one who does, and Figueiredo is the one who dies, or at least his 2 division title hopes die here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you said there at the end. Like, there's a lot of pressure on both these guys, especially in a loaded division. Especially Figueiredo based on his age. I mean, he really has to go on an incredible run to become champion. Can he do that? I mean, he's got a tough test right out the gate. Sandhagen's a guy that he's a guy I like. I mean, he's a really good athlete, very elusive, moves well, great footwork, long and lanky. Flows between both stances, kind of get his opponent guessing because he's constantly cutting angles with that. Uses feints to set up his shots well. Just touches until there's an opening. Some of the best variety I've seen, I've said this before, he's constantly attacking with different combinations, never throwing the same one back to back. Good at like doing the little thing, cutting angles to land in small spaces. He works the body well. I love his step-in knees. He's got a big kicking game, hard calf kicks, mixes his striking and wrestling together well. He blends them really well because he's not traditionally a wrestler. So he got to use it more opportunistically. And he's a solid wrestler. I mean, he beat Rob Font strictly with just wrestling. And then find out he was injured and he got injured in it and just could turn a top 15 guy at the time into a wrestling dummy. Was pretty impressive. He's good at winning scrambles. He's a solid defensive wrestler with a good get-up game. I mean, TJ Dillashaw took him down a lot, and he'd pop right back up. Umar Nurmagomedov take him down, and he was scrambling on the feet, making it competitive. Figueiredo, he isn't the athlete he once was, but moving up to bantamweight, I think, prolongs or hides it a little bit. He's a pressure counter striker that draws out attacks well with feints. I think we're going to see a lot of feinting with both these guys. He's a slip and rip striker. Sometimes not the best volume. I mean, I go back to like one of his last Brandon Moreno fight. He was throwing a lot of single strikes in that fight, but he's really learned how to pace himself, and he's become that crafty veteran that makes the fight slow. It's like this art that aging veterans at best can get the people.
It always reminds me of Jose Aldo.
Andre Arlovski prolonged his career for years, maybe do that. Anderson Silva did it. Mm-hmm. So it's a real art in kind of be able to do in the twilight of your careers. And it doesn't even always have to win those fights, but just to be not blown out the water when you've lost your explosion. And Figueiredo is a guy that was most of his career was based on being this big explosive guy. I always said, he can fight at both stances. So you kind of, come at you from different angles. But I've always said he reminded me of Vanderlei Silva, where he'll just hold his ground and throw hard, wild power shots and just connect, like not the most technical, looping shots, landing from weird angles. Some of his best punches is when he gets hit and he counters and he grazes you with a shot, and it just happens to land harder. Even though he doesn't even land on the best spot, like he doesn't land on the chin, he lands on the top of the head or something. He just happens to have this ability to land harder. He is better when he cleans things up and he keeps it in tight. He throws like a straight right. He shortens his hookers a little bit. He's shown that even at 135, he can still crack him. He dropped Marlon Vera, who's obviously one of the better strikers in the division. Great body work. He'll throw elbows if his opponents get close to range, which is super impressive. He can strike off his back foot while being pressured back. Now he is hittable. He kind of keeps his chin high, something he's always really done, which is always waiting for him to get blasted, but it doesn't happen. He likes to battle in the clinch because he's very physically strong, and even at 135, he can do that. And he's been moving up at 135. You wouldn't think he'd wrestle more, being a smaller guy, but he wrestles more at 135. He's good at lowering his level during an exchange. He sometimes from distance he doesn't set up his entries well. He's not the best defensive wrestler. I mean, Brandon Moreno took him down a lot, but we've talked about Moreno that he's a very underrated grappler. He struggles to get off the bottom with Moreno in the last fight. He has a serious submission threat, especially with he's a specialist with the head attacks. He locked in guillotines against Alex Perez in a title fight. Tim Elliott. He's got some good back takes. I am a little worried about his durability because he was getting hurt a bunch by Moreno. So his durability could just suddenly collapse. But he's got a lot of experience going 25 minutes, basically at a slower pace. So I talked a lot about Figueiredo and kind of talked him up. With that said, I like Sandhagen big here. Not what would you say, near 6-1 or 5-1 favorite? Not that level. But I'd be very surprised if Figueiredo was. I just think Sandhagen's a bad stylist matchup. I think he's too fast. I think he has too much volume, too much variety. I think Figueiredo's best avenue would be to wrestle. And I think Figueiredo might get a takedown or two. He times it. I just think he's going to have a hard time keeping Sandhagen down. I think Sandhagen will work back to his feet, then turn on the volume. I think it's going to be pretty decisive. I think he wins by unanimous decision. I didn't realize he would be as big a favorite he was because I was locking him in. I was like, all right, let's parlay it. I got to put my lock in. Give me him. I was going to parlay him with Bo. Bo's getting everyone. I actually like that Bo was not as big as favorite as I thought he was, so that kind of makes the parlay a little spicier. But throwing who else? You know what? Throw in Thomas Petersen too. Give me Thomas Petersen, Bo Nickel, Corey Sandhagen. Bet your mortgage on it. That's my lock of the night.
And you have said, and I fully agree, I don't have a rooting interest in these fights. Unless I know somebody personally.
I'm rooting for Bo. I'm rooting for Bo because.
But on some level, you communicate with his dad offline pretty regularly at this point.
Yeah, me as that friend, but not even just that. Because I can separate that because it won't change. Bo could be a terrible fighter. It wouldn't change. I like his dad, and when we talk, we don't talk about Bo. We talk about wrestling. We talk about him being a coach, and me trying to learn from him. Yeah, he's coached at a very high level. And coaching his kid at a very high level. That's what we talk about. We don't talk about Bo's. We hardly ever talk about his fighting career. But the reason why I'm rooting for Bo, and I'm openly rooting for him, which I normally don't do, is he's the epitome of American wrestling. He's when people think of American wrestling now, they think of Bo Nickel, and I'm super passionate about American wrestling. I think we're the best wrestlers in the world, and my son's an American wrestler. I grew up as an American wrestler, so that's why. So,
in light of that, I guess I'm rooting for Corey Sandhagen on Saturday because if we get out of this era without Corey Sandhagen and Sean O'Malley fighting each other, I will break something tasteful in my house. Yeah, and I think it's more likely to happen. It's more likely to happen if Sandhagen wins.
Well, maybe not, because if Sandhagen could go all the way to the title win, and O'Malley automatically gets a title shot. So no matter how many fights O'Malley getting a title fight against Marab immediately is just, that's stupid.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if Sandhagen loses, O'Malley will probably never be far enough down the ladder that they'll fight. So yeah, if Sandhagen wins, it's more likely that we'll see it at some point. I want to see that. So yeah, that's my rooting interest.
Yeah, that's a good matchup.
And that is it the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 67, Sandhagen versus Figueiredo, also known as UFC Des Moines. I have been Ben. He has been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our previews, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to bring you a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional humorous, historic, or personal asides that we think is pretty unique in this space. Please do like, subscribe. We appreciate it. It doesn't cost you a thing. It makes our bosses happy. It allows us to keep bringing you this content free of charge. Please drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. We'd love to hear your take on these fights. We each picked some upsets. We disagreed on several fights. Let us know your take on these fights. If we left some upset value on the table, if we went way too far out on a limb on any of these guys, let us know. If you're right and we're wrong, we will give you your flowers on the recap. You just have to come and collect them. We are live on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. Keith takes the wheel. We'll talk about all 12 of these fights from the top down to the first prelim, talking about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. Talking about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers, and talking with you. The live chat is open that whole time, so we're taking your questions, your comments, and your hot takes in real time. We have a growing community of friends that hang out with us after the fights, and we would love for you to be part of it. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy these fights.